How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another live episode of Tier Talk. Guys, this is going to be a bit of a discussion. Connie, let me just show you something. Bloop, 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 bloop. And then some notes. Old Tier Talk style right there. We're going to be talking about 25 skills that you need to be a good leader in corrections. I'm getting it from an article. Let me just give you the article real quick so you guys know. The article is called 25 Leadership Skills You Should Learn in 2021 to Boost Your Career. And it comes from Real Learning, Real Impact. So there's a lot to discuss here. I have Connie, who's going to be my expert. We're going to dissect it. We're going to take a little time here. And we did use the word skill as opposed to ability, because skill means it can be taught. Ability usually refers to something that's inherent. So ability, even though some people may see that as being a little bit more stable, a skill could be stable as well, as long as you kind of keep on growing, keep being active, be intentional with that growth, and keep learning. And I think that's more the key to dialogue, guys. When you cross into a higher position, it's about continued growth. You don't stop learning. You continue to learn. So real quick, while people are coming in, just want to announce our 3 sponsors. We have American Military University. So if you guys are looking for a higher education, go, great online school, get that degree. American Military University is a great school. They support what we do at Tier Talk, but they also support the whole profession of corrections. Oh, I think that's from the Big Mac I just had. I hope that's from the Big Mac I just had, because that looked like mayo. Yeah. I don't know how I got my position. No, guys, it's from a Big Mac. Also, if I may, we have Guardian RFID. Today's video is also brought to you by Guardian RFID. From inmate tracking and cell checks to cloud-based business and artificial intelligence, Guardian RFID digitally transforms jails, prisons, and juvenile detention facilities of every size. Visit Guardian RFID for more information. And we also have the WRAP, W-R-A-P. Guys, if you don't know what the WRAP is, there's going to be a link in my description for what that is. It's going to show you a video. Controlling combative subjects quickly and in an upright position so they can breathe has never been more important. Departments such as Washington, D.C., LA County, San Diego County, and hundreds of other facilities across the U.S. trust and believe in the WRAP restraint. Go to saferestraints.com for contact information and mention Tier Talk to receive instructor training at no cost. Lower liability at your facility and your personnel with the WRAP. Give the WRAP a call today, 800-WRAP-911. Connie, what's going on? Where you been?
I know, right? Listen, I take care of my mom, so I was off the grid for a little bit, taking care of family, and now I'm back, so I'm ready to go.
Well, it's good to have you back. Do you mind introducing yourself to our audience, please?
Sure. So, hi, everyone. My name is Connie Alleyne. I am the founder and president of the Civilian Corrections Academy. I'm also podcast host of The Fly Behind the Wall and the author of The Cage Was Her Cocoon. So, definitely an awesome time of growth and development personally. I was just at the MASCA board meeting a few weeks ago, and there's just so much great stuff, I think, that's a brewing for all of the correctional professionals, and this leadership topic is one that certainly came up during the conference. So I'm looking forward to how we explore leadership and what those skills look like, because developing the next generation of leaders is important.
Right. And guys, we're also going to be teaching at MASCA. I think we also have Nebraska this year, Maine. There's a few of next year, 2022. So it's a great article. Now, the funny thing is, when you read these articles, I'm sure Connie will agree, I don't think they write them for corrections. So that's where the magic comes in with us. We're going to try to take someone else's theories and we're going to apply it to our world. Obviously, there's a little bit of creativeness here, but I think we're in good hands. I think me and Connie, with the help of the people that are kind of in the community right now, interacting with the dialogue, you can help us make this a great episode. And we're hoping that this will be utilized for training, because this video has been requested. So again, I just want to say one more thing. I was reading John Maxwell's book, 21 Laws of Leadership, and the first thing talks about law of the lid. And it talks about a leadership's ability. I'm not using the word ability. I'm using the word skill, because I believe these are abilities that can be taught. So can leadership skills be taught? I'm going to say yes. But again, you have to be intentional with it. So it's a little bit different where ability is inherent. But Connie, real quick, what's your thoughts between the difference between skill and ability before we move forward, so we can get that out there?
So I think ability is just really, this is what you inherently can do, right? I have an ability to be creative. I don't know that you can necessarily be taught to be creative. You can be shown a process and taught the process of when you're in that creative process, that creative space. But I think some people are just naturally creative, right? Some people are naturally speakers, some people are naturally teachers. And I think that, yes, you can be taught to teach. That doesn't necessarily mean it's an ability that you innately have. And so I think with skills, which is really great, is that someone can teach you skills and help you hone in those skills and further develop those skills. You can become a master at a particular skill. So I absolutely see that there's a distinction between the two, but I could also see why we use them sometimes interchangeably.
Right. And guys, this is going to be great because I kind of have a way I want to do this, but me and Connie really haven't discussed this. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover a law, or not a law, skill. And then we're going to I'm going to go over a blurb, which is very general. And then we're going to apply it to the profession. But let's start off with Joe Roberts, who says leadership can be taught. I think it takes great leaders to teach it. And we're going to get to that. That's one of the skills. And that's why it's important that we have great leaders in corrections to teach the next generation. Joe Roberts, spot on, because that's one of the skills that we're going to talk about later on.
Yeah.
Good job. Now, by the way, see that Joe's a leader, natural, has the ability. He didn't have to be taught that. He knew it. But Joe, you're 100% correct. So the first thing we're going to discuss is relationship building, the foundation of, hold on, I did type it all out. Relationship building, the foundation of a high-performing team. So bear with me. Let me read the generality, and then we'll go with Connie first and myself, and we're going to apply it to the profession. So relationship building, the foundation of a high-performing team. Some leaders will say that they do not need to be loved in the workplace. This may be true, but to build a cohesive and more engaged team, great leaders need to learn the skills for building good working relationships in the workplace. Good working relationships increase employee engagement, and according to the Gallup meta-analysis of employee engagement, business units with good employee engagement have 41% fewer quality defects and 37% less absenteeism. That's key right now. A 21% increase in productivity was also seen as a result from higher employee engagement. So even if you think you don't need to be loved in the workplace, you will definitely need to be skilled in building good relationships in order to be effective. If your team is highly engaged and happy in the workplace, you will likely be loved or at least well respected as a good leader. So Connie, let's break this down into our profession. Let's talk about relationship building. I have an idea, perspective I want to try, but let's go with yours first. What do you got?
So with relationship building, I think you can only be effective in doing that if you have some insight into yourself, right? So you got to know your strengths, your weaknesses. You got to be able to come to the table as your authentic self, because I think a lot of times people fail at building a relationship when they're not being transparent, or they're being phony, they're being fake, and people can see right through it. So most of the time, knowing what you offer and being willing to be vulnerable is really important in building relationships. I think it's also understanding that relationship building in our context actually takes time to develop, right? Like you can't expect that you're just going to come out the blue and all of a sudden you've got great relationships with everyone. You know, it takes time and commitment to building those relationships. And I think the other thing that's really important as we think about building relationships is also going into the relationship knowing that you can learn something just as much as you can offer something in that relationship building exchange. And with that comes along with asking questions and being a good listener. So there's I think a healthy level of curiosity where you're really trying to understand the other person, understand where they're coming from, and be able to listen when they're giving you feedback or offering, you know, their insights to you. It can't be like a one-sided building of relationship. And I think the other thing I think you have to think about in our context as we're building relationships is that everyone has something to offer. Everyone brings a certain level of expertise or excellence in their respective areas. And so you've got to be able to appreciate what other people bring to the table. Because then when that appreciation is there, people actually can let their guard down, right? It's almost like, so you acknowledge what I bring to the table, and people really do appreciate that. And I think the last and most probably important thing would be being present, right? Like, I think a lot of managers sometimes are in the mix of things, but they're on their cell phone or they're checking emails or whatever that is. And I feel like when you're truly trying to build relationship with someone, you are mentally and physically present.
Yeah, I love that. And by the way, we're adding tips as they come along when people put the comments in. Like I know Scott Thomas said, don't ask anyone to do something that you wouldn't do. We also had lead from the front, not from behind. I'll add them in the bottom so we get some good tips from the audience as well. What I would also add here is that I love what Connie said, but I also would want to add that building relationships amongst each other. I know as I move up on the administrative level, it's very important for me to have the departments working together. I don't want to micromanage every interaction that they have to possibly have, but I also can't expect, it's crazy, even though I may know these people for years, I can't expect them that they know each other. I mean, we have custody that may work with medical, but never communicate with them. It's crazy, but it's true. Or, classification and social services, they may just sit at these tables, but it could be very isolated. So I think a big part of our function is to make sure that if we have a team, and even if the team involves different departments, it's still a team. So you want to be able to do what you can to encourage their engagement with each other. Now, guys, that could even just be departmentally. Let's say I'm a sergeant and I have a bunch of general assignment officers, maybe, 19, let's say general assignment officers in a good world. You know what I mean? They may come in as individuals. My job is to try to connect them, have them, build a relationship that, between each other. Let them try to see that we are working together. We have the same goals, the same values. So again, I love what Connie said, because the focus is you building the relationship with others. But I also think that we could also build the relationship with others to others, if you will, again, just to kind of increase the team's engagement. So again, as an administrator or just kind of sitting above, it's very important that not only do I have an environment that allows that to happen, but I'm behind that, encouraging that I try not to be the middleman anytime there has to be a dialogue between two departments, because sometimes the department may call me and it's like, well, can you speak to this department? I'll go back and say, well, why don't you guys just speak to each other? You don't need me for the
you're
middleman.
serving more of like a connector.
Yeah. Like you're well, you know what? Administration technically is a facilitator, but
Right.
but the thing is, you don't want to have to always micromanage that, and by the way, I'm talking from my experience. I'm sure someone else could apply this even as a sergeant, as a lieutenant, in the medical side. We facilitate. So at the end of the day is I don't want to be involved in every little dialogue. I kind of want to let that sometimes run automatic. So again, establishing those relationships between the different departments can really help set something up that's evergreen. Like, I'll give you an example. Sometimes if you have, let's say, concerns with medical and custody, sometimes medical may feel their only route is to call administration. So maybe one day what I could do is go to work and tell them, hey, these are the supervisors of these areas that are working in the areas that you may need them. So I would recommend that you call them first and then use me as a last resort if needed, because it just makes things quicker too, guys, because they're dealing with the person that is directly responsible for, dealing with that. And it just encourages two-way communication, because think about it. Once medical asks, then maybe custody in return will ask. And it just, it keeps things moving. So,
but doesn't it also redirect them to the appropriate chain of command?
Well, it depends. Good point. So
I'm just
yes,
saying.
I mean, they may say that they have a different chain of command, technically, because they're not in custody's chain of command to some extent. But I still want to reinforce a working relationship. So yes, I could say when it comes to the area that you're in, you would like to deal with these individuals. So if you're having a problem with an officer, take it up a notch, go to the sergeant. The sergeants are concerned, go to the area supervisor or the shift commander. You want to make the admin the last resort. It's got to be an exhausted effort, but you're right. It does encourage a chain of command, and I do try to reinforce that. But But with that said, I mean, technically, when it's an emergency situation, I get it. But most likely, when it's departmental needs, like, hey, Ganji, I need some inmates brought down here to be seen by the clinic or to be seen by this and this, it's more of a departmental concern. They're kind of going to custody asking, hey, can you help us get this done? So technically, the connection between both also gives an understanding of what each department has to do instead of you constantly being in the middle giving the directive. It's like, well, if you guys communicate, you build a level of respect with each other, you start understanding, and now you can even have the lieutenant, when they go to talk to the officer, they believe in what it is that you have to get done, as opposed to just doing it blindly because, well, this is just Ganji pushing on me. No, you have a good working relationship with Connie, and you know why medical has to get this done. So yeah, I believe 100% the function, the communication matters. We do have some good comments here. Before we get to the next one, we have Joe said, Connie brings up great points. People need to feel that they're being heard and contributing to the team. Bethany says taking the time to fully engage with the person can be the difference between retaining them and having to replace them. Perfect. That is just spot on. Facebook user says provide security training for other departments to facilitate something. Maybe you can put that back on Facebook because I can't make the other word. Hey, Sandy from Canada. And we also have Joe said, Tony, great point. I always felt during my time in corrections that the caseworkers were isolated from the unit officers. Breaking that barrier is key to running an efficient facility. Spot on. That's what we're kind of trying to be better together campaign. That's what we got going on. And then we got Facebook saying BOP has always embraced the correctional workers' first philosophy would state systems embrace such an ideology. Yes, it's working together. I believe the BOP is one of the first, they kind of lead that because a lot of their caseworkers, stuff like that, they're also officers. You know, they're trained at that level. I think except for chaplaincy. Okay, so number two is agility and adaptability. Stay on the cutting edge. So in a study conducted by Development Dimension International in 2008, the top of the three most important leadership qualities at 32% is the ability to facilitate change. In 2018, adaptability is definitely one of the most important leadership skills as the business environment has changed, or the agency has changed, and so much is continuously changing faster than ever. Effective leadership must be able to adapt to the changes, even if that means working out of your comfort zone. So leaders are not left behind by shifts in the industry and can give their business a competitive edge. This leads us to explore innovation and creativity as part of the skill sets of best leaders. Connie, just to kind of edge into the dialogue here a little bit, corrections is going through changes right now. We have a lot of people that are resistant, and we've done videos where, guys, you got to move forward. Because if you're not moving forward, you're being left behind. And for the people that are becoming supervisors right now, this is part of what you're coming into. You have to realize that right now we're going through a lot of changes. And when you step up, the responsibility is to facilitate these changes through the toughest of times. So when you become a leader right now, you're not becoming a leader in a perfect world. You're becoming a leader in a leader that in a world that needs a leader right now to try to do this in a way that we still keep the employee morale where it needs to be. And we'll get to that. But one of the keys that I like here is it says stretching your comfort zone. That seems to me, for me, the biggest concern when you have people that kind of stay away from change, kind of resistant, become the obstacles because they're comfortable and they're afraid to test the limits. So a good leader knows how to, get the best from people. And we say rubber bands. Rubber bands kind of stretch their comfort zone. The same thing here. As a leader, your job is to stretch the comfort zone for yourself, because if you don't do that for yourself, then you can't expect others to kind of adapt to the changes that are happening in corrections today. Connie, what's your thoughts on agility and adaptability? Stay on the cutting edge.
So I think this is one of the really important ones, specifically because I think the environment is so fluid and so much is changing that when we can highlight or showcase our ability to be adaptable and to be agile, it shows that we can critically think on our feet. And I feel like these are things that we already do. Like we are proactively, we are acting sometimes beyond our scope because of the various situations that present ourselves in this very dynamic environment. And so I think being able to show how resourceful you are, how you're able to lead people through the uncertainty, right? Like, I think that's what the agility and adaptability, where it comes in, that there are some uncertain times where uncertain, like I'm just thinking about like when the transgender issue first came about, right? Like, it was uncertain. People weren't sure what we should or should not do. But for those who could critically think, like, okay, here's the policy, here's the directive, here's what is, here's what the world is kind of looking at as we approach the situation. How do we integrate all of that and make the best decision in the moment where we don't have a guide to give us to give us that direction? And I think that's where we're able to show that in corrections, most of the staff are working in this space of agility and adaptability. I think the flip side to that, though, is that sometimes in being agile or being adaptable, the decisions may not always be supported. And so people may not necessarily step up because they're not sure whether or not they're going to be supported through the process. And so I think it's not so much that people aren't able to go beyond their comfort zone. It could just be, I tried stepping beyond my comfort zone before, and that wasn't encouraged or that wasn't supported. Because we talked before about those leaders who have the lid, right? And what that does to people who work with them, who are thinking to themselves, I can't go beyond this because this particular leader is not supportive.
Well, one thing I want to mention with that is, and we'll get to that, one of the topics is going to be how leaders give feedback. So that is, even when you have to say something negative, how do you encourage this person to continue moving forward? Because one of the things we talk about, I just did a video for Guardian about having the right mindset. You're going to, especially when you're adapting at times, and we'll even talk about the next topic, which is innovation and creativity, you're going to hit roadblocks. You're going to have failures, but you got to make sure you have the right mindset to continue moving and not be held back by the failure. What have I learned and how do I move forward? But that's in you. That's the questions that you're going to ask in your head to motivate you forward and kind of lean away from the questions that want to stop you. One of the things I like that we were touching on real quick is when it comes to adaptability, guys, we may be resistant to some extent because we've been so used to doing something this way. But at the end, the ship is still moving. So technically right now, a lot of people may think admin and all these other people are responsible for the changes that are happening, that they could do something about it. They really can. And a lot of them are putting the effort to try to get the word out there, but they're not in control of the outcome. So what we tend to look for is people that can kind of push the ship forward, but can I tell you something? Push the ship forward at the safest course. We can't stay back. That's not an option. Because if we stay back, we get forgotten and the ship goes on its own and we have no control. So what we're looking for now is people that know this is what we're going through, leaders right now, and they know, hey, guys, I know we got to go through this, but here's how we're going to maneuver. We're still going to go forward, but you kind of set the terms. Now, the thing is, if you want people that are in these positions that are constantly resistant and they're not going anywhere, knowing that the times are pushing us forward anyway, it's only going to get worse. And then we're going to complain and complain and complain, but it's not doing anything. So when we're at this table, the table is, what do we have? We got to be resourceful during unresourceful times. That's what you want from a leader right now. Yeah. Listen, we're going through something right now that we have limited control over. So how do you help us shift? How do you help us create momentum? How do you help us get people to want to go this route? Because it's happening. It's happening. So again, a lot of times people look to blame and blame and blame and blame, but all that does is keep us where we're at and the ship's still moving. So I love the adaptability because we are going through some crazy times right now. And for me, I'm definitely looking for leaders that can steer the boat. Guys, they're still steering it. Forward or not, they're still steering it. They're taking control of avoiding the most dangerous waters. But without that involvement, guys, we're going to be going through some rocky shit. So we need you to be involved in that. Just some more stuff. Oh, Connie, got a comment there. How are time sensitive? Yes.
Yeah. So there was a question that was posed by Loud and Proud.
Would you agree that administration tends to make decisions without first consulting leadership and officers on the front line? The best people to talk to would be frontline workers. Okay. Can I add something on that, guys? did a video on this recently. Let me get Connie's answer first. I would agree. However, some decisions are time sensitive and leadership may not have the time to consult with officers on the front line. I agree, especially emergency situations where you need things to run automatic without any hiccups, and we could always discuss it later and learn next time some cases. But you got to realize something too for administration. You have to kind of get an understanding of what the front line does. You got to be curious. You got to build that communication with them, because if not, everything starts floating back to the middle. You know, so what I mean by floating back to the middle, it floats towards bureaucracy, whatever. Yeah, I know the word, guys, but I got this accent that's a killer. But what I'm saying is, if you don't involve the front line, the decision making when it's needed, and you kind of disregard, eventually it's going to go in the hands of people that never worked the front line, and then we move further and further away from what needs to be done, where the most effective change can take place. So you're right. If you don't involve the front line, then eventually things start shifting to the middle, where people that are making decisions don't know what it's like to be the front line. They don't. So I think it's a great perspective that you, great question, definitely a great answer by Connie, because you can't generalize these answers. I mean, we could say yes or no, but at the end, we're the ones that are like, Joe, you asked a great question, very general, but a great question. So we try our best to specify it to some extent. But it's a great question. Now, number 3 is innovation and creativity. Push your boundaries. So I don't have a lot outlined here. Just in a global study on creativity, findings show that unlocking creative potential is key to economic and societal growth. The increasing demand for creativity and innovation will continue to be driving force for executives who must harness their leadership skills in these areas to be effective and competitive. So again, it's about stretching out of your comfort zone. And then real quick, they give some advice I thought I could share with you. One is find time in your schedule to sit down and think with no interruptions. This will help you organize your thoughts and set goals for yourself and your team. Use this time to think of new ideas or suggestions that can improve performance and productivity. Look out a window with a view instead of keeping yourself in four-cornered rooms. Do a walking meeting in the fresh air with few team members as you brainstorm. A relaxed environment may help your team come up with a new idea. Make it your point to focus on others. Listen to each of your team's ideas. One of the ideas thrown out may just be the one you're searching for. Listening to individuals' ideas will also allow you to identify those who do not share your goals. This can be a good opportunity to steer them in the right direction. So, Connie, we kind of touched on this with agility and adaptability, but here they're talking about how to kind of remain creative. So, I mean, in corrections, it's very tough, obviously, but what's your thoughts on what I just read?
Well, I mean, I guess as I'm listening, I'm reading it too on the screen, just thinking about, how practical it is for us to be innovative and creative. I think, one of the things that we kind of miss out in corrections is that we don't necessarily have that learning environment, right? Like we actually have an environment sometimes where you're afraid to make a mistake. You're afraid to do something different because of the possible outcome and whatever those ramifications would be from that negative outcome. So I guess I'm thinking, so to an extent, there may be ways that we can get creative. But I don't know. I mean, I think pushing the boundaries in a corporate space is very different from us trying to push those boundaries here, just because I think of the legal side of our job, right? Like if in fact we start doing things that aren't in alignment with policy and procedure because we thought it was a good idea to do it that way. I mean, certainly you have to have some sort of justification for why you would have done something or what have you. But I'm just more so of the mindset that we get creative, we get innovative, we get very resourceful in a space where we don't have much resources to tap, right? What's another way can you accomplish this thing with the little resources that you have? And I feel like that's our everyday experience in corrections.
Yeah, again, obviously we're talking about within the parameters of policy and procedure, but sometimes, believe it or not, when you have a leader as a chairperson of these meetings, they're able to create changes because sometimes policy, procedure, they don't cover everything. So it's great to have that discussion and to have that interaction with the team. I think part of this when it comes to being creative is knowing that you're not going to have every great thought that comes through. You're not. You're gonna have people at the table that have so many different perspectives that they're gonna provide things to you that you'll never think of. I mean, it's true, guys. Their perspective gives them different experiences, and those different experiences give them different ideas. So to sit there and cut them off and not allow them to be invested or to have that interaction where they can suggest these ideas, you're cutting off your department from growing in a very successful way, especially in today where we're going through all these changes. And if you're going to sit there and cut the front line away from it, well, then we're never going to move in a direction that actually matters. But having said that, I'm going to go back to front line because I believe Joe kind of touched on it too, where that's the problem. It's a constant battle to steer the ship. We always have to remember that, you know, you may have someone that charts the course. I get it, but you're still going to have the main person has to steer the ship. That's their responsibility. So, you know, that is their responsibility. And the people that steer the ship, they want people that, you know, are taking us in the right direction. You know, again, you have the same destination. The destination doesn't change. The course changes to get to that one direction. So if you find that you have people that aren't getting you where you need to be because the destination is so far off from where you want to be, that's where the dialogue becomes quick with them. It's like, hey, I get it, but we're not there anymore. This is where we're at. So do you want to be part of this? Don't be an obstacle. We have enough of that. Be a resource. So, you know, but part of this, again, is being creative is also to allow someone else to have a say sometimes and to really take it in and give them a chance to be invested in where we're going. I think that really does matter. He also says, Joe says, I think it's important that supervisors know their supervisory discretion when and where they can implement the gray area in the black and white and implement it effectively. I agree. I think admin has a lot of discretion, obviously, because they see more of a bigger picture. You got to realize something. The bigger the picture you see, the more discretion you're going to have, because a lot of the stuff that's written is really departmentally. That's why administration has a lot of discretion, because they see the bigger picture. They see the operation side of it all. And if you have, and we'll get to this, guys, but if you have leaders that don't want to employ discretion, they're going to set you back. You're going to have listen, I make decisions every day based on discretion. You know, I mean, I could easily say no all day, or I could say yes all day, you know, but sometimes there is that gray and it's like, ooh, but that's when you're a forward thinker. Sometimes the discretion is employed because, you know, if you stick to this yes or you stick to this no, where's it going to end up? Where's the ripple effect? So the next one we got, this is a good one. This is needed. Employee motivation, improve company's efficiency. So here it states, in close connection with relationship building, and I agree with that, the ability to motivate your workforce is as important as keeping employee engagement high. One of the most effective leadership skills is knowing how to continuously motivate employees regardless of their engagement level. Gratify point to a study done by the firm Interact on 1,000 employees in the U.S., which cited that the number one complaint, 63%, from employees concerning their managers is lack of appreciation. And conversely, when managers appreciate their contribution, their engagement increases by 60%. In another study by Westminster College, it was found that boosting morale is the top motivational technique, that's 32%, that employees prefer. If employees are not motivated, the company is negatively affected with, you know, financial concerns, absenteeism, attrition, and low productivity. We're dealing with that now. Absenteeism, people not wanting to come work, people that are leaving the job. So Connie, let's get to this. This is one of the main areas here. Let's talk about employee motivation.
Yeah. So I think, one, as a leader, you have to know why you're there and why you're leading, right? Because you set the tone. And so your employees, whether you realize it or not, like, you're the role model, right? And most of the time they see the behavior that is acceptable based on the tone that's set from up top down, right? So if I see that my boss is, oh, this department ain't shit, blah, 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 then that's kind of the tone that my boss is setting for me. And it's okay for me to follow suit with that same direction, that same behavior, that same mindset. And so I think straight out the gate, it really matters that the mindset of the leader is that, yes, this may be some trying times, but I'm not going to give up on my staff. I'm not giving up on the department, and I'm going to figure out, what are some ways in order for me to motivate. And I think one thing, which is not something tangible that sometimes people ignore, is just the why, right? Because I feel like that's where the true motivation comes. If I understand why we're doing this, why this is the mission, why or how I make a difference, how I contribute to the why we're doing this and why it's important to accomplish this mission, I think that in of itself can serve as motivation. And now, are there other things? Like, I mean, we talk about, whether it's benefits, pay, it's, the food truck, it's whatever other stuff, right, that we can come up with to get people motivated and engaged, right? And a lot of times I think what helps with that is also the unity, right? It shouldn't be this is what frontline is dealing with, but no one else is impacted by it, right? If we're all in this together, it makes a difference, I think, to the staff to know that their leadership has rolled up their sleeves. Their leadership is taking some of the grunt of the impact of whatever this thing is that is coming at us. Not that the leadership is way over there and in no way, shape, or form impacted, neither will that leader come forward, roll up their sleeves and help out. So I think, we can get some motivation from others when we start to look at some of those things that are not tangible and really try to hone in on those.
Yeah. One of the tips here is announce accommodations. I mean, obviously we've done that before where, someone does something really good and you want to make it public. And I want people to know that's not for recognition. That's for appreciation. There's a big difference between the both. Recognition is very ego, but appreciation is more of a thank you. And we all want to thank you. I don't care what anybody says. We all want a thank you. And one of the things with motivation is you also have to be connected to your people. And I think that's why they express the relationship with people, because if you don't know what motivates your people, then you're not going to be able to motivate them, and by the way, guys, motivation could come with the reputation of that person in that position, because if you're going to start doing these incentives to motivate, you have to be someone that they trust, or else they question the incentive.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I like to consider myself a fair person. I love to communicate. I love to talk. So when I call somebody to my office, sometimes they get nervous because they generalize the admin side of things, thinking that, well, they got to be punished. And it's not the case. It could be, I want to appreciate something that you did. But because you have that negative thing attached to the admin, you go into that office, and even when I give you the appreciation, you don't really accept it. It's more like, whew, thought I was in trouble. It's like, no, you weren't, man. And I just want to say thank you, but it may not give you what you need because you're so concerned about, at least I'm not getting in trouble. And then you kind of negate the fact that's like, oh man, I thought I went in there and I was going to get in trouble. Turns out he only wanted to thank me for this thing I got involved with yesterday, but thank God I didn't get in trouble. It pushes away from, and guys, for leaders right now, this is the hard part, because you're motivating people through the hardest of times. Like it said, people aren't coming to work. They don't want to be here. They're the changes that are happening. So how do you keep things balanced? The thing is, guys, is that we're going through a lot of negative stuff, but how you react to it matters. The behavior that you model matters. Because when you're respected as a leader, if you model the right behavior, people will look at that, because there's people that do enjoy the job. They don't want to be next to someone that's disgruntled and miserable. They want to find value in this, but they can't connect with people that have that same value. So what do is they get disenfranchised, and we wind up losing good people. So with that said, finding motivation first starts with finding motivation in yourself. And I'm going to tell you something, guys. I would actually go as far as saying, if you want to motivate your employees, then you better be inspired. True, like the inspiration that you're going to need to motivate, it's got to come from within. And then you could use whatever you got to do to motivate to get them inspired. But if you yourself are disgruntled and are caught in the times and how you're reacting, I get it, but it's negative. You're not ready to be in a position like this right now. You're not, because we don't have control of that. We don't. What we do have control is how we react to the times. And guys, it's tough. It's really tough. I get it. But in the end, guys, we still got to have the proper mindset and have some optimism, have some hope. You know, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having hope. You know, there's nothing wrong with having a little hope that things could be better. But I will tell you one thing, motivating can create the right outlook. Because I'm going to tell you something. If you see everything negative, that's all you'll see. Even in the good, you'll see negative. Even in the good, you'll see negative if that's what you look for. Make it intentional. See the good and inspire, motivate. Now, the next thing they have that's really important, guys, is decision making. Produce the best results. So a leader is tasked with making decisions all the time. To be an effective leader, those decision-making skills need to be top-notch. Critical decisions affecting your organization on a large scale need to be sound, rational, and solid. In reality, your decision as a leader will determine your and potentially your organization's success. You need to stand by your decisions and be confident in them to convince the people involved affected by the process. That's key. That's kind of what we're talking about. Making an unpopular but necessary decision is probably one of the most difficult tasks as a manager, but it is and will always be part of an executive job description. And there's some tips here that I just want to mention real quick, Connie, that can help you lead into your dialogue. But tip one, when it comes to decision, now guys, this really matters because when we make a decision, we do have to stand by it. And the staff needs to see that we're confident. Even if you're an officer and you're making a decision with an inmate, they got to know that you believe in it. The decision has to be an internal justification, not because the sergeant's here, it's because you believe in whatever that directive, whatever that decision is. But I like what they say here. This does matter. That's why I tell people, and Connie mentioned it before, find your why, find your value, find your purpose. Because this right here, what he says here as a tip, is a great way to reinforce that. Identify your personal and organizational values. What work ethics do you live by? And what are the organization's core values that convince you to work for them? That's why I always tell people there's research now. Before you enter into this profession, look at some Tier Talk videos. Look at Just Corrections. Look at, Connie's got a podcast. We got a book out there. We got Facebook with a bunch of social correctional professionals on social media that can tell you about this profession so you can connect to a purpose before entering. So now you could see, does this profession offer what I want? Don't just look for pay. Don't just look for benefits. Look, what else do you want to accomplish in life? I want to be able to do this. I want to be able to serve others. I want to be able to do this. Well, this profession can do this. But again, you can connect with people that can show you that now. We couldn't do that yesterday. Now we can. The other thing he says is understand your organization values, which we discussed. Understand the values of your organization stands for. It's imperative that you accept them because the basis of all your decisions should adhere to these values. Connie mentioned that before with policy and procedure. Make sure that the values are represented in all aspects of the company. Now, study both your personal and the values of the organization. Look at your personal values alongside your organizational values. What are the similarities and differences? What adjustments do you need to make to your own values to be aligned with those of your organization? It's that adjustment, not change. It will make you work life much more comfortable the closer your values are aligned with that of your organization. The last part is apply both values in your decision-making process. Once you understand how your own values intertwine with your organization, you'll be able to incorporate both sets of values in your decision-making process. You'll be better guided when high-stress situations arise, as you know what the non-negotiable items are for yourself and your organization. Connie, I know you want to attack this. What do you got? I know this. Come on, Connie, that was good, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good. I mean, so when we're in this space of making decisions, the reality is that one decision is usually informed by previously made decisions, right? And so as we learn more about our environment, our ability to make decisions continues to evolve and get better, right? Because hopefully we learned from the last decision we made or the last mistake we made, whatever those outcomes are. And I think that we have to encourage people to make decisions. A lot of times you'll have people, here's the hot potato and I'm going to dump it on my supervisor. as opposed to stepping up and making that decision. And sometimes it's rightfully so, right? Some things just may not be in your wheelhouse, and so you would pass that on to someone else to make the decision. But I feel like in this space, we're all learning differently. We're all learning different things. I think, yes, to the core is the policies, the procedures, the directives, all of that. But then here's our working knowledge. Here's what we know we've done in the past. Here's what we know that got us the results we were looking for. And so maybe this person is the right person to make the decision based on their experiences and what they have at their disposal right now. Because a lot of times we're making decisions on the fly. It may not necessarily have all of the moving parts that we need to incorporate, but we're going to make the best decision we can with the information we have. And I think the more that we feel confident about doing that, the more that people will step up and begin to make decisions. Like, I'm making the best decision that I can with the information that I have. And I think something, for some reason in my mind, it just keeps kind of repeating, like, reasonably prudent person, right? Like, I think I read that in maybe like a union contract or something, right? But that's usually what they're looking at. With someone else in your position with the same information, would they have made that same decision that you would have made, that you made, right? Is it reasonably prudent for you to have made that decision? It's not far off the beaten path, but I feel like this is where the rubber meets the road and where we really get the most value from our employees, because there's things they know that we may not know is in an administrative space, or you may not know at a higher level, but they know because they're touching this issue every day.
Yeah, and I don't think we're that far off for what the organization wants to compare to what we want, the values. I think we're pretty much connected. I mean, yeah, you have to align it a little bit, but I don't think there's a change. I do like the word adjustment. And I'll be honest with you, this decision-making actually helps when it comes to the discretion, because that's going to kind of give a little validity to when you make a decision, because now you're leaning on something. So think of it from an admin perspective as well. I mean, think about it from any perspective, because we're dealing with human behavior. So there's not going to be policy and procedure for every decision we have to make. So we have to lean on something.
Yep.
So if you can find a way to align your values with what the department expects, then your decisions could at least be justified at that point. And if they want to change it, it is what it is. But having said that, at least you're not far off a beaten course.
I like the word you used. I like the fact that you said align your values, right? Yeah. You didn't tell someone they need to change their values for them to be the same as the organization. But aligning the values kind of says, okay, this is where I know we're kind of on the same page. This is where I might struggle to make a decision because I don't agree, right? But at least you know that.
I wish I could take credit for that, Connie. It was in the article. Your compliment. I mean, I get a compliment from you, but I can't even take it. I was hoping you would say, I love how you said, get off the beaten course or something. You said align, which is the one thing I did not say. It came from the article. So why don't you go write your thank you note to the person who wrote the article?
Listen, that means that you highlighted a really great
article. Yeah. Oh, I'll take that. Because can I tell you something? This is one thing they did not say. They did not say the difference between align and change. So I added that because I kind of figured, that would matter when, if you have some people that are going to troll what we do.
For sure.
But again, having those values really do help you make decisions that aren't really so charted, like that, that are not really so defined in what we do. So I love that, connecting the values of the agency with your values and making sure that, when you make a decision, it's consistent with what's expected of you in that role. Now, this is hard. This is definitely a gift. Conflict management. Be a wise counsel. I didn't highlight a lot here. I just have, according to American Management Association, a manager spends at least 24% of their time managing conflicts. When a conflict arises, an effective leader should be able to jump in and resolve or at least mitigate the conflict before it affects the business negatively. When properly dealt with, a conflict may even turn out to be positive for your organization. It says effective leadership means you should be good at identifying conflict and have foresight on how to resolve it. It's also essential to be very rational when faced with confrontation. Conflict management is no doubt one of the most important leadership competencies. From Robin Short cited a study that found 60% of U.S. employees have not received any conflict management skills training. Are you trained to face conflict in the workplace? So Connie, let's. I mean, Connie, we have personal conflict, but we also have departmental conflicts in corrections. I mean, and it's sad because a personal conflict can lead to a departmental conflict. So let's talk about the importance of conflict and having that skill.
So, I mean, I think with this whole conflict management, so first of all, we know we work in an environment where there are going to be conflicting priorities, because there are different departments by nature of our environment. There are going to be some conflicting agendas, right? Like, this is what we're hoping to accomplish here. This is what we're hoping to accomplish there. And, immediately I think of when there's a lockdown, right? There's some sort of operational disruption, right? And you have medical saying, I need to see these people. Here's the treatment plans that need to get done, the medication that needs to, like, here's all these things, right, that are important to medical. And then custody saying, well, we have no movement because of this thing, whatever that thing is, right? Operationally, nothing can happen today, or nothing can happen right now. And so medical is still going to be pushing because they have their own agenda, which is patient care, which is how they're looking at it, right? This is patient care. This is treatment. All this stuff has to get done. And then you've got custody saying medical probably just don't even understand, but what we got going on takes precedence over this particular agenda that medical has. And I'm not using agenda in a negative way for those watching, right? I'm just saying herein lies some conflict, right? And so being able to manage that matters. Being able to understand, one, why are we having this operational disruption? Because as a medical administrator, that's what I'm thinking, right? Like, why are we having it? What is the issue? Let me understand it. That way I can take that information and translate it to the staff, right? It doesn't become like a thing unnecessarily. And so part of managing that conflict is when you know that these things are going to happen, right? So sometimes medical doesn't know there's a lockdown, right? But one of the things that we did in the facility where I previously worked was we would actually talk about, so we're going to have these things happening over the next couple of days. You can anticipate that. And that gives medical the ability to go mitigate the risk, right? So now I can go and do all these things in preparation for this lockdown that we know is coming, right? And I think that's one of the ways that when you think of conflict management, how do you get ahead of it before it is a conflict? How do you make sure that if there is going to be a conflict, that we can carve out time to actually have a discussion before the conflict escalates, right? And is there an appropriate forum in place in preparation for those things? Now, that might be an operational thing, but then there are those personal conflicts. I remember having 2 nurses fighting. I was like, what in the world's happening? Why are you guys fighting? And of course, somebody's boyfriend, something, right? Like, it happens. But here I am sitting in a conflict resolution situation, right? Where I'm either, one, do we need to change your schedules so you guys aren't working at the same time? Or do you need to work in another facility? And people didn't want to leave the facility, so they agreed to changing schedules. And what would that look like? Because if I leave them working the same shift and the same schedule, I know that down the line, that's going to escalate and it will impact the work outcome. And my goal is to avoid the impact to the business and make sure that whatever this issue is squashed. As stupid as I might think it is, my reality is that if I don't address it, the conflict will spill over and it will impact all of the work that we're trying to get done. So I think this is one that, as much as it's uncomfortable and many people don't like confrontation, it's not one that can be ignored.
Right. And guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I love what McKinney said, choose your battles, use your knowledge. Sometimes you can't always choose your battles. I've been put in the middle of things because I am in a leadership position. So sometimes when you move up, you kind of put yourself in the center of conflict sometimes because they expect you as the leader to kind of make a decision. So I think when it comes to the conflict, I mean, we're talking about conflict. We're not talking about ED, just conflict, to kind of keep things moving forward. Because obviously there are certain specific conflicts that require leaders to back away and then kind of give it to the higher level to handle. But we're talking about conflict in the workplace that could create a stalemate. Well, again, we've discussed departments that don't get along, medical and custody, social services and custody, whatever it is. I mean, what you have to do, in my mind, is facilitate. I get it, but I think you got to kind of get an understanding of both perspectives and try to see where you can make it a win-win if possible. It's not always going to be a win-win. Sometimes you have people that are really just stubborn because I don't like you, Connie. So therefore, I don't want to do it because it's you. But then if I have a concern with someone else from medical and it's not Connie, oh, not a problem. We'll work together. And as management, you're going to see that. You're going to see only concerns happen when this person's on, and when that person's not there, everything's running smooth. So, but I think the key here is that you have to get involved. You have to understand the perspectives of where it's coming from, and then try your best to make a resolution that fits the agency first, fits what you need first, but hopefully in a way that benefits both departments. Because in the end, you don't want the conflict to end in a win-loss. You want both to see it as a win, but you also have to recognize that sometimes what you see at the surface isn't what the concern is. You could solve this conflict, but that's just a symptom. These two people just don't get along. So sometimes as a supervisor, as a leader, you got to step up and say, hold on, stop, guys. This is an easy situation. What's up with you two? And guys, I can tell you what departments or people, whatever it is, because we could spend all day solving conflicts. Because don't forget, there are some conflicts that you could see people trying to move forward. They want to make the effort, but maybe there's a policy in play, or maybe a department has something in play that the other department really it's an obstacle to them. And sometimes we do policies, we do them departmentally in isolation. But with that said, there are some where it really is two people that can't get along. So you have to kind of understand where that is, and whatever movement you make, I could say this: when you go to resolve any conflict, look to make it evergreen. Don't look to do shit just to get through the moment because it's annoying and you want to do something that's convenient for you, because it's going to pop up again. So try to do stuff that's evergreen, that lasts a little bit longer than just a moment. Oh yeah, Chameleon. Yeah. By the way, thanks for the because we wouldn't have even thought of that if you didn't bring it up, Chameleon. It happened to me with. Well, he's the one that mentioned about pick your battles. I said it's not always easy. But I wouldn't even thought about that if he didn't bring up the wonderful comment. And he goes with me, one of my supervisors that makes sure when I get promoted in FTO, I told them to feel comfortable asking me anything. That's the key, guys. I mean, guys, the reason why you feel comfortable is because we continue to grow. So even you could take a question as a learning experience. So you don't have to know every answer. You just have to know how to get the answer. So the next thing, this kind of leads into this, is negotiation. I like this though. So negotiation is a process where two parties with different ideals get together and mutually agree on an outcome, or what an outcome should be. According to skills you need, the process of negotiation should involve 6 stages. Well, if you're married, there's really this part here is a little bit of bullshit, but I'll go along with it because there's no, that's true. Or when you have freaking children,
oh, forget it.
There's no 6 stages here, but. Sidebar. All right, so you got preparation. I agree. And what are we going to discuss? What's happening? Then the actual discussion, clarification of goals from both parties, and try to make sure you're staying in context of what it is, so you can get to an outcome as opposed to wanting just to challenge the perspective. Sometimes we get so stuck in our way, we just want to challenge it, and we're not moving forward. If someone gets a point and it makes it, and it's a good point, you got to allow that to come in. Negotiation towards a win-win. I love that. Agreement, and then the implementation of a course of action. Good negotiations can be beneficial to any organization because they will build better relationships. They'll also help find the best long-term solution by getting the most out of two different sides. An effective leader must be well-versed in his negotiation style to move an organization forward. So, Connie, what's your thoughts on that?
So, I mean, negotiation, I think one of the things, so when I was in business school, one of the things they said was, with negotiation, that doesn't always have to be a win-win, right? With negotiation, sometimes it could just be a win now and win for later, right? Like, so if there's a priority, right, we're going to try to make both things happen, but this is the priority and kind of comes first, and then we'll work on this thing, because like you can kind of phase some things in as you're negotiating. I think the other thing about negotiation, especially in this environment, is just that a lot of times people don't want to say that what they're bringing to the table is just not that important in the moment, right? Like someone has to be okay with saying, okay, I get your perspective. We don't really need to do this right now. I'm okay with whatever that compromise is. I think someone just put that in there, right? I'm married. I'm married. However, the correct word is compromise, right? Like there is that compromise along the way where you identify that we do want the same outcomes. We do kind of want things, we're working towards the same thing. And so in order for us to get there, it may not be the way you want me to do it or the way I feel I need to do it. Maybe there's a middle ground for us to kind of get there. So I don't think there has to be a all or nothing in the mix of that. The negotiations can be really strong. Sometimes they could be really heated, but you know, you got to do your due diligence when you're negotiating, right? Like what is the reason, what is the justification behind whatever the issue is that you're pushing? And I think some people fall short providing that justification sometimes, and so they didn't necessarily win or lose. It's just they were ill prepared for the negotiation. So I think that's one of the things we want to, you know, make sure, if you're in a space where you're kind of pushed to negotiate for something, you know, for us, it was negotiating for care, right? Like we already got a budget set, there's treatment that's already approved, there's some that's not. How do we negotiate for that? And sometimes it's building the case, right? No one should walk around the facility with hepatitis B that's not treated, right? No one should. And oh, but why not? People do that all the time. No, people don't do that all the time, right? In the community, it's one thing. Maybe in facility is different, but I think that's a reality, right? Like here is the case for why I think it should be one way or another. And I think we need to be kind of always prepared to negotiate. You shouldn't necessarily just walk in looking for the yes, because it may not be a yes. It may be you need to explain it so that people understand, and maybe we can get to a yes.
Yeah, it actually mentions, first off, I like that because, I mean, I guess it's a compromise technically. I do like the win-win, but it does mention here when you're kind of in the middle of a negotiation, you also have to be someone that people can trust, build trust amongst your team, and be someone they know they can trust. Even when a negotiation does not turn out to be agreeable to one of the parties, if the parties involved trust the negotiator, it'll be easier for them to accept the outcome, whether it's in their favor or not. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Be democratic, give options to choose from. I like that too, by the way. When you're negotiating, try to kind of give them options to choose, because then they feel that they're still responsible for a choice, as opposed to telling them this is how it has to be. I do agree with that.
It's kind of like when you go to buy something and they have like tiers, like levels of what you could buy. This one is $1,000. This one is $7.99. This one is for whatever, right? And then like it's almost like, oh wow, well, they gave me 3 options to choose from. I'm just gonna pick the middle road. Most of the time, they want you to pick the middle road anyway, right?
It empowers you. It empowers you,
right?
It's like, do you want a biggie? No, I'll stay with the mediums. They don't want you getting a small. That's what it is. And then if you did make a sacrifice during the negotiation, be silent about it. Don't reveal that you have the weakest hand. Keep a straight face and show that you mean business. The other party will not be able to use your weakness to win the negotiation. You know, sometimes we may
strategy.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a strategy there, but sometimes we do have some weaknesses, and we get in the middle of the negotiation, we realize, oh shit, I got nothing. That's happening. I'm dealing with something like that right now. Like I got nothing. But with that said, you know, you don't want people to know that. But again, if you're willing to take people's thoughts in, it's constructive. You grow anyway. So in the end, if it's revealed to you that you got nothing, it's probably because the person presented a very good argument. And you know what? It's not a win-loss. It's a win-win. If I'm wrong, I'm going to embrace your solution. Now, the next one, and we kind of discussed this in other episodes before, is critical thinking. Essential to produce desirable outcomes. Guys, in this profession, you got to be able to have critical thinking skills because, you know, by the way, this is a skill that's developed because if you're not testing the what if every time a decision is made, if you're not kind of debriefing yourself and your team, you're getting experience, but you're not getting evaluated experience. It's evaluated experience that helps you grow. It helps you deal with what could happen at every situation, because again, you're dealing with a lot of unknowns. So it's great to maybe say, okay, we did it this way and it worked. What happened if we went this way with it? So those what ifs, and they could be fun if you have the right team there and everybody's able to kind of give their perspective, because that's how you grow. I may not be able to hear you in the moment of the emergency, but afterwards, can you tell me how we could have done it better? Now, it is a skill. I think this is a skill you have to be very intentional with. Critical thinking is the top most important skill required of leaders to successfully lead an organization. I'm going to add a little to that, obviously, when it comes to corrections. Working in a prison and jail, it's critical thinking that can save lives. Critical thinkers are intelligent decision makers, highly analytical and always rational. Those attributes are essential to lead the organization towards achieving a goal. A leader must be able to firmly stand by their decision. Because he's a critical thinker, it should be safe to assume that every decision he makes is well researched, objectively scrutinized, and that all possible outcomes are assessed, and therefore his final choice is the best course of action. Can I add to that real quick, and then we'll go to Connie, if I go first on this one? Russ is a very good critical thinker. I'm a very forward thinker as well in my areas of expertise. And by the way, when you have your areas of expertise, you kind of also develop intuition, which means that you can act before all the information's there, which means that you act faster because, maybe you just have something inside you that's guiding you to where you need to be. Some people will learn it in time, but usually it does come from evaluated experiences and running those what ifs and really just, getting on top of your game. So when situations occur, you're still able to move. And I love they add this matters to me, kind of goes back to the confidence of your decision. If you do those what ifs, if you are good with critical thinking and you do have a situation where you got to make a decision on the fly, you are going to be confident, because I think through critical thinking, you develop the confidence in yourself. So I may not have all the information, but I'm confident that I'm going to take this decision because I've evaluated similar situations in the past, and this is what I feel works best, even at the team debrief. And don't forget, if you're leading a team, they'll respect that too, because most of the time your what ifs are going to have their investment involved, their thoughts carried out. But Connie, what's your thoughts on that critical thinking, essential to produce desirable outcomes?
So I think that in our space, because things are just constantly evolving, the critical thinking piece is crucial. I think that being able to pull various pieces of information, pull from your past experiences to make the best decision in the moment, it matters, because it really could be a matter of life and death. I remember just seeing times where, like, we'd be going through a policy trying to figure out what to do, and someone else would be like, oh, like, here it is. Like, it could be a crew of people who, like, oh my goodness, we're kind of flurrying around on what to do, and oh, but this is different. And that one person walks in and can pull together everything we talked about plus their experience and say, oh, here's what we should do, because in the past when we did X, Y, and Z, here were the outcomes. And I think, like, we need more of that. We need to encourage that, because that, one, it saves time, but two, how do we continue to empower others, empower our staff to be confident in that decision-making ability, right? Like, I mean, it's a beautiful thing to see in motion, quite frankly.
Right. Sorry about that. So, right. So here's the thing, guys. And the other thing with that Russ is the one, if you guys get a chance, and I think Connie's been on some of these videos before, check out our critical thinking videos. We've done a few. I believe they're very enlightening. I believe there's something that definitely highlights why it's needed in corrections. And I guess obviously as a leader, it's definitely something that is a skill that's intentional and that you have to develop daily. I love that. Being as a leader, be a good communicator and a great listener. So this moves us to number 9, Connie. Focus and results orientation, the road to success. So what do we have here? We have, in a high-pressure leadership role, many events may occur simultaneously. So it's important to develop the skill of focusing on what matters most and know what impact it has on your organization or team. The second habit, well, the first habit that was outlined in this is prioritize. And then the second is Begin with the end in mind. Therefore, a highly effective leader should be result-oriented. This habit's important because a leader needs to be able to envision the result he wants before starting work on it. When you're able to focus and orient yourself to the goal you want to achieve, the path you will lead your people on to get there will be much cleverer. I want to tell you something before Connie starts this, is that, guys, every time you enter a situation, you better have an end game in mind. If you don't have a destination, you're liable to go anywhere. So I do believe that, and again, through evaluated experience, critical thinking, whatever it is, you know that when you enter a situation, these are the things that you need to accomplish. If you don't go in with that in mind, well, the problem is you're not going to know where you're going to head, and most likely things are going to go backwards. But Connie, I think as a leader, you should be very results and focused too, knowing what priorities are there to get you to where you need to be, and then do whatever you can to get that in play. Because remember, we kind of touched on it before, Connie, with steering the ship. You know, we could take different courses, but we need to know where the end game is, you know, and then obviously the milestones on the course we're taking, why we're taking that route. But what's your thoughts on focus and result oriented?
Focus and results oriented to me is more like you have to have a plan. You know, if you don't have a plan, you plan to fail, right? And so I think that's part of the plan. Gives you direction, it gives you some steps, and of course there's wiggle room. You may have to improvise along the way, but I think knowing here's where I'm focused and here's what the end result I'm expecting to achieve. And when you don't have either of those, literally anything, you know, I think of walking down the corridor, and if I'm not focused on what I'm walking down the corridor for, I got this inmate coming to me for this thing, I got this officer might want to talk about this thing, this nurse bringing up that thing. It's like now you're kind of pulled off course. But at least when you have a plan, you have a very defined focus. Here's what I'm heading towards, here's why I'm doing it, here's the steps I'm going to take, here's the outcome that I'm expecting. And when you don't get that outcome, at least you know where you need to make some adjustments in your plan in order to achieve that outcome. So like, I'm all for it. I do think it is the road to success.
Hey, that was key what you said though. It's kind of like a scoreboard. There, one of the books I read with Maxwell talks about having a scoreboard. If you don't have a scoreboard, you don't know whether you're winning or losing in the game. And even if you're winning, you know, what strategies are working. And if you're losing, how do you adjust? So again, if you don't know where you're at or where you're headed, then you don't know how to adjust if it needs to be adjusted. So again, not knowing where you're going, how do I adjust? So yeah, that's definitely spot on. Then we got, kind of relates to a time management, control your priorities. Guys, this is my weakness. This is one of my weaknesses. Not really good at time management. Workloads can easily pile up, and it can be daunting to think about how much time you'll need to finish your work. A leader without the right time management skills can be easily overwhelmed and eventually burned out. Guys, this is a pretty simple one. And the reason why time management is important, guys, is that when you don't have time management, you tend to get overwhelmed. And let's say, you know, you have people that want to come and, you know, have dialogue with people that come to your office. You want to have like a little bit of an open door policy. You want to communicate, get to know your people. Problem is, if you get overwhelmed with work and you don't have your priorities straight, you look at the people as being annoying because work is in the back of your mind. Because it's sad, guys, but I'm giving you a perspective. It means I felt it. Doesn't mean I believe it, because I'll check myself. But sometimes you feel something, you have to go back and say, wow, why did I just feel that? And then you do whatever you can to get away from that, from being a permanent belief. So with that said, yes, if you don't time manage, and all of a sudden you get overburdened with all this work, you don't really get the time to connect with your people, because, you know, again, you're just so overwhelmed with work that you can't even take your mind out of it. So again, time management to me is important on so many levels, but I don't think people look at that part of it. I don't think they look. I just think they look at, well, of course you got time managed priorities because of deadlines and all this other stuff. But I'm telling you, when you're overwhelmed because you're not properly managing your time, you push away your chance to connect to your people because you're overwhelmed. Connie, what's your thoughts?
So I think this is key to being able to manage all the priorities, right? So part of that overwhelming feeling can be you're trying to remember everything else you got to do, right? So it's like one of the things, especially like once I started the business, it was like I need everything on my calendar, right? Because it's important that I'm still able to accomplish all the things that I need to accomplish and establish those priorities, right? So, in addition to having a day job and running a business, like I'm still a mom. And so I actually have on my calendar, there's a block of time that's my daughter's time, right? And like I've been intentional about that because it's a priority. And I feel like when there are those things that you want and need to accomplish, you make them a priority. And so the only way to make sure you get everything done that you want to get done is actually by putting it in a space and having the self-discipline to hold yourself accountable to whatever time management tools you use. Some people use calendars, some people use sticky notes. I'm not a sticky note person. Some people use the calendars in their phone, right? Some people use an actual calendar. Like I used to have a huge desk calendar. I would write everything on my desk calendar because it was right in front of me, right? I didn't have to open up my computer and all this other stuff to go see it. But I think that's the thing, right? If you really want to control your priorities, if it's on your calendar, it happens. And if it's not on your calendar, it just can't happen today. And if it's something pops up and it takes priority over everything else, then you have to be equally as, I guess, adaptable to manage the thing that popped up and then sort of shift your calendar so that you still meet your priorities.
Thank you, CKez. That's our boy. It's been a while for him. We haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah.
The next part's my favorite gift, or my best gift. Communication, convey information effectively.
Oh yeah.
Definitely one of the top skills. Good communication leads to less conflict, better negotiation outcomes, and encourages the building of solid relationships within the organization. So real quick, I mean, communication is really about listening first, getting someone's understanding. You got to be empathetic. People have a right to be frustrated. I think telling them, hey, you know what you got into, or just deal with it, that's not really good communication skills. I mean, communication is really trying to give an understanding. And sometimes you can't give a proper understanding unless you understand the perspective that someone's coming from. Like, just to give an example, if I'm educating someone, let's say I'm a teacher, and I'm educating first graders as if they're 12th graders. They're never going to learn because I'm not at their level. Good leaders know that it's about walking with people, but not at your pace. Sometimes it's about their pace. They say it's lonely at the top, and they say, well, if you're saying that as a leader, then you're not a leader, because technically you should never be at the top alone. You should be walking amongst your people. You're not looking to impress, you're looking to make an impact. So again, communication is really being right next to your people, understanding their perspective, and then just, showing them, again, appreciation, value, and trying to give them an understanding of where we need to be. And again, it truly does start from their perspective. But Connie, I mean, we talked about this. I mean, the importance of communication for any leader. I mean, I think that's one of the number one things you need.
Yeah. I mean, you have no choice as a leader, right? The expectation is for you to lead your people. And how do you do that? Right? How do you lead your people if you're not communicating with them, if you're not, making sure that
Hello?
they know what you know. And I think that's one of the things that we have to always be mindful of, is that when we get information, because I get it, some information may be privileged information, and sometimes we may not feel that the staff should have this information. But I think our reality is that if we are one team and we are trying our best to make sure everyone's on the same page, everyone understands the expectations, everyone is clear on the path forward, you have to be a good communicator. And then you can't get so frazzled if someone asks you a question that's not on your script, right? Like, because as a good communicator, you also have to understand some of the holes that might get poked in and be able to articulate everything that would be associated or related to that topic that you're communicating about. So I think it's critical that as leaders, we are good communicators, because that's where the confusion happens, when people misunderstand what was communicated, or people have questions but they didn't ask the question, and you didn't anticipate a question, so you didn't provide any additional information or clarification. So one thing I saw one time was, so you communicate once your message, and then you communicate the message again, and then you restate the message to make sure that you've said it enough times that people are clear on the message, but also that if by the third time that you've communicated something, it has jogged a question, because usually people have to hear it once or twice, like, what do you want us to do? And then you may get some questions coming after that third time. And if not, it's almost, okay, we're good. They understand clearly what that message was.
Yeah, and guys, going into every dialogue, you should be, like Connie said, prepared. I mean, that's the key. You got to always know where you want it to head. And again, it really does start with even knowing that, okay, let me go and get understanding what's happening, so I can make sure that when we have this discussion, I kind of understand from their perspective and where it has to go. But communication, to me, obviously is essential for any leadership to survive in any profession, but definitely in corrections, because it's communication that brings about understanding, and then, again, helps us get the correctional objective. Now, this is what we kind of touched on before, Connie. Sending a memo, guys, to all staff could be interpreted 10 different ways, right? So that's where the bureaucracy comes in. Memos are not a great way to communicate. We all agree with that. Technically, to be honest with you, when there is a change, that should be, at that point, what's utilized to bring communication out. Let's have everybody at the table. Let's discuss it. Let's see what we got going on, instead of just hoping to put a memo up. And then, the memo could always be a result of the dialogue that occurred with everyone, but should really not happen until that dialogue has occurred. And again, that's just because it shows an investment in people, and just gets communication. It gives them a level of understanding of what that memo is about, but more importantly, why it's needed. Now, quick feedback matters. Part of quick feedback, the key to staying on track. So let's get that there. Quick feedback, the key to staying on track. Part of having good communication skills, being able to give timely and appropriate feedback to your employees. One of the crucial leadership competencies required by firms today is the ability to give feedback, to appreciate, recognize, correct, or even reprimand employees. Office Vibe says that 39% of employees do not feel appreciated at work. This quickly turns into employee dissatisfaction and possibly high employee turnover. According to a survey by Globoforce, 93% of managers need training on coaching employees. It said that people leave their bosses, not their job. On the other hand, when a leader receives appropriate leadership training on how to effectively give feedback, employees will feel connected and become more engaged in the workplace. Guys, feedback should be constructive. But again, you also have to have the mindset of growth as well. I mean, I think management can set up the right environment to have a trusting environment where people know that not every mistake is going to be punitive. We expect mistakes to happen. The problem is, if you have this environment that people can't trust, they're never going to admit to their failures. And then they just start hiding it. So the problem is, there's no chance for constructive feedback, because one, they're not going to tell you. And second thing is, they don't trust you. So even if you were to give constructive feedback, they're expecting something punitive at the end of it. Feedback is important. How it's delivered is important. It should be delivered in a manner that helps growth. Punitive should always be a last result. But again, feedback kind of relates strongly to communication too, because you can't give honest feedback unless you truly understand where the person's coming from that made the choice they made. So with that said, feedback is definitely important, and it has to happen in the moment. So basically, once something has occurred, you got to get right on and give the feedback, because that's when it's relevant. It's not relevant weeks down the line when, the issue's been forgotten or whatever it is, because the person's also in anticipation. Did I do something wrong? I don't know. And then it's taking so long for them to get back to me, and now they're more worried. So even if you want to make it constructive, they're more worried, same thing, about not getting in trouble. Yep. At this point, I'm just happy I didn't get in trouble. So, listen, whatever you got to say, I'm just happy I didn't get in trouble. So again, the feedback should be timely, of course, but the feedback to me is where the most amount of growth occurs, and you should really be able to take advantage of those moments where you need to apply feedback. Again, timing is important, but also be prepared in how you want to deliver it. That's key. You want to deliver in a manner where the person takes it as growth and not as shit. If I mess up again, they're gonna bury me. No, it's more of hey, I understood what you went through. I get your perspective, but this is what we need to do next time so you understand. But Connie, I'm sure you've delivered some feedback in your positions. I mean, the delivery matters, correct?
Yeah, so I think controlling the environment as well as delivery, you got to be intentional about it. Giving someone feedback in the walkway or in passing is simply not effective. It's not, because they can't. So one, they can't ask you questions about it. Two, it's not a private space. And it's almost as though, well, you didn't make time to give the feedback, so why should there be any additional exchange, right? Like, and I also think that it matters the spirit in which you give it, right? Like, so if you're just a mean-spirited person, you just nasty individual, like, no feedback is gonna be received in a positive way. And so I think we have to be in tune with ourselves and what we project as leaders, because you want the feedback to be applied in the moment. You want it to be, one, real feedback, but also you don't want it to be, I'm giving you feedback, but I'm giving it to you in the spirit of, you a piece of crap anyway, right? Like, that's not the way you give feedback. So, and I think it shouldn't take you weeks to give feedback, right? Because then the person could forget what is this about, right? Like, it is, if it was important enough that you took note of it, you make the time to call the person in, chat with the person, whatever that is. Some people do very formal, some people don't. Either way, it's important that people get feedback. And I think if we would normalize giving positive feedback, people wouldn't be so anxious about feedback, right? But because we don't say, oh, yo, you did a great job, right? Or it's not something we always do, right? Because I think that's the feedback people are looking for, that in the moment, someone acknowledged that I did something right. In this space of blame, in this space of, oh, this one ain't doing this and this one ain't, people not carrying their own weight, and all of this, the confusion that's going on, for us to make the time to acknowledge somebody did something great, someone did something really good, great catch, thanks for not letting that go, whatever that was, right? Like, I think that's the real-time feedback that we should be giving. And then if there is something that's teetering on a disciplinary nature, I think it matters that we make the time to sit and talk with the person and answer any questions they might have, but also make sure that we're giving them direction on how to correct it. Because a lot of times you'll see these performance evaluations that list all of these things that people have done, but there's no direction. How are we going to develop you, right? Like, how are we going to make sure this doesn't happen again? Because I think that's the helpful part of the feedback, that I'm not just going to highlight what you did to mess up, but I'm also going to say, so here's the good thing that I saw in what you did, and here's some ways that we could improve that. That way the person knows, okay, this is what I'm going to be working towards.
Yeah, and you start with the positive. I agree. It gives the statement very balanced. It also shows appreciation. I like what Loud and Proud said too. Quick feedback, same thing as what we're saying, could be as simple as leaders doing tours and commenting on their performance. I mean, supervisors that comment on how a housing unit looks. It kind of takes note of the hard work it does, to, instead of just coming in and pointing out the negative, and I think it invites the employee to embrace maybe the negative as a constructive manner by starting off with something positive. Like, man, I like how you run the housing, man. Everything looks great. Hey, the only concern I have right now is maybe they have too many pictures up in this one area. Oh, not a problem. I got it. But you started off where the person was in a good mood and they're very receptive, and really technically that should be the way you do it. Yeah. Cultural intelligence. Right now we do work in a very diverse culture. So just having respect for each other. I mean, this is pretty much just a quick one. Have respect for each other, guys. We work in an environment right now that's all inclusive. So no matter what culture, what backgrounds, be respectful. We're all part of the same team, all part of the same family. Connie, everything else you want to add on that? Can I move forward on that one?
Yeah, I think with the cultural intelligence, I think it's two-pronged though. I think it's the culture of the environment and the facility you're working in, right? Because I've worked in one state, all 17 facilities had a different culture. And so I think there's an awareness that you have to have and competence on how to navigate the cultures in the facility. But then there is that cultural competence because we're dealing with diverse backgrounds and people of diverse backgrounds. So I think there's two layers to that cultural intelligence that we want to make sure we have an awareness of.
No, I like that. Yeah, it says here like business globalization, but you're right. That kind of relates. Like, I mean, you are working in, I know people that could shift from one prison to the other. It's a different culture, and you have to be open to the fact that it doesn't matter if you're working for the same state. Each prison operates differently. Each jail operates differently, and you have to go in there with a learning mindset. Not that you're going to go in and reinvent the wheel. I mean, it's true. This one I like, the one that says command responsibility, be the one in charge. So this is one of when I became a supervisor, at first it was external, money, whatever it was. But then eventually someone asked me, are you willing to take responsibility of other people? And that's what you really have to think through. This is obviously the biggest thing when it comes to becoming a supervisor, because you're responsible for other people's actions. You also have to share credit and then share blame. So, but it says responsibility refers to the duties attached to your position. You show good and effective leadership skills if you take responsibility for your actions. The higher your position in an organization, the greater your responsibility. You become accountable for the actions of your subordinates. I think this is a good story, so I want to share it. The concept of command responsibility stems from legal military language used for hierarchy, accountability, and war crimes. General Tomoyuki Yamashita was prosecuted by the U.S. Supreme Court for war crimes committed by men under his command in the Philippines during World War II. His crime was failing to fulfill his duty by allowing his men to commit those crimes. Corporations try their best to hire the best individuals who possess the ideal leadership competencies to avoid bottom-up failure. So again, command responsibility is extremely important. That's why you got to have a level of control on the people that you supervise, because you are responsible for the outcomes. And guys, this is where the decision can't be personal. Sometimes you have people that are bringing down the team, and friend or not, you have to do what's best for the team and ultimately what's best for the organization. So sometimes it is having to get that person off because they're holding the team back or making the unpopular decision. Because in the end, all this stuff's going to play out and you will be held responsible because you are in that position to be held responsible. And as a supervisor, you can't say, well, that's not what I told them to do. You can't do anything. You're responsible of that outcome. You have to kind of step up, and then it's sad to say they want to see someone that's in charge. So when they have these emergency situations and they're doing something and you're watching it and you're not involved and you're not stopping them from doing something they shouldn't be doing, doesn't matter if you're doing it or not. It matters that you're in control. The supervisors, they come through first. Listen, you could have major incidences in a facility. The first person they go after is the highest person that was at that scene. Yep. Because they have the greatest level of responsibility, and therefore they're seen by the public as having the greatest level of control over what could happen. So having said that, you got to know that command responsibility, that better be pretty much the main factor in making sure you're okay with becoming a supervisor. Connie, what's your thoughts?
Yeah. I feel like this is one of those areas where it's all about accountability, right? Holding yourself accountable. And when you're holding yourself accountable, and I'm not talking about micromanaging, what I'm saying is that you've trained your team, you've done everything you could to develop your team, you've empowered your team to make all these great decisions, you support your team, but in supporting your team, it's also understanding that you are going to hold yourself accountable for the decisions that your team has made, right? Because as much as we don't want to acknowledge a team failure as a personal failure, it is a personal failure. It is, as the leader, if there is a failure on the team, that means there was some deficit, there was some area of development that as the leader, I did not fill that gap, right? Whether it was I didn't empower them, I didn't share information, whatever that was. I think when you step into that leadership role, you have to be prepared to take on the responsibility of not only just being in command, but whatever those outcomes are based on the decisions that your team has made, that there is that level of responsibility in that. And I feel like this is really where the rubber meets the road, right? Where you gain the respect of your team because you're not throwing anybody under the bus. This is where your team sees what you're made of, right? Like, it's about to go down. And here you are walking into the consequences and taking ownership of that consequence. And I think that's the thing, the ownership side of that, when you command responsibility, really, really is so, I think, powerful. But I think your staff being able to see you own it, I think is even more impactful.
Yeah, it can never be deferred.
Yep.
That comes with the position, and you got to know that coming in. So again, if you're looking to become a supervisor, responsibility is something you have to embrace. If you don't want it, don't become it. Trust and believe, don't become it. That moves us to commitment. Be the leader everyone wants to work for. So in an organization, both leaders and employees must have some level of commitment to their jobs for goals to be achieved. Simon Sinek said that leaders determine that the workplace atmosphere and that the importance of having committed leaders cannot be underestimated, so that the employees have someone to trust. The engagement level of an organization is higher when employees trust their leaders. A committed leader exhibits stewardship. I can go first with this one.
Mm-hmm.
As a frontline person, you expect me to be dedicated, you expect me to be committed, then I expect the same thing in return. Not even just to the organization or the department. I expect you to be committed to me, to the front line, to what we need to get the job done. And commitment isn't so much about the outcome, more the effort. Can I trust you that you're committed to at least make an effort? I get that you may not be in control of the outcome, but are you still going to make the effort to try to help us, get us what we need? But you also have to have a commitment to the mission, the vision, which means that you yourself have to understand it. You have to believe it. And then you have to push that value across to the people that are on the front line that you have to motivate every day. And guys, by the way, commitment matters, especially for leaders, because if you don't stay devoted and manage that commitment and try to keep that employee morale good, well, businesses, even corrections, we tend to fall back to complacency, decline. It's just, that's the one thing that you constantly, complexity. That's the one thing that you constantly have to take control of, is the fact that, you have to be intentional when it comes to showing people that you care, that you're committed to what's happening, that, you're committed to the job, the responsibilities, your dedication. And then when people see that commitment, because mind you guys, the front line looks for behavior, not words. I don't give a shit what you say. If words don't match your behavior, I don't got any respect for you. You could talk to your blue in the face, but I don't believe you because your behaviors are totally different. So your commitment is going to come across not in your words, but your actions. That means, hey, even for officers, you get the sworn oath, that's great. You said it. But have you done it? So technically, the commitment is more seen by someone's actions. And as a supervisor, you got to model those right actions that showcase commitment, dedication on all levels of the relationship you got to have with the front line, the agency, the organization, whatever it is. Connie, what's your thoughts on commitment?
I think for me, it's real simple. If you're not committed, why would I be following you? If you're not committed, how do you lead me if you're not committed? Right. And so I think that's one thing as a leader we have to be acutely aware of, that our commitment or lack of commitment will show up. It will show up in the way we come to work, in the things we say, the way we carry ourselves, the things we do, the things we don't do. If we're ignoring calls, if we're ignoring emails, if we're simply not showing actions that would align with someone who's committed to the mission. And so staff being able to see that, I think almost solidifies their relationship with their boss or not, right? Like you said, I think a couple bullets down or back, that, people don't leave jobs, they leave managers, right? And I think
something else the article said, Connie, I actually did a solo of your face. Why I thought you were going to say a thought that I said, and I soloed you in.
Well, you made this statement.
And you said a thought from the article. Joe's been following along. Joe knows, It's all right, though. But again, no, finish your thought. I'm just messing around. But finish your thought about what you were just saying.
Yeah, I just think that, there's no need to follow. And I think people can pick up when you're not committed. And as someone who's seen leaders lose their commitment and lose their own inspiration, it certainly impacted my level of commitment and inspiration, because it's almost like you're looking for hope, right? Like if you see your leader is in despair, it's hard for you to still feel hopeful when technically the leader is giving you the other signs that things aren't going well, right? And I think that's really just it for me as it relates to commitment.
Yeah, guys, I want to mention something too real quick. So as we grow, even the organizations, the agency, the correctional, it does become more complex. So we need to do things that eliminate all the layers of that complexity. I was reading a book recently called Founder's Mentality. So basically, businesses run the best, they're most devoted when you have the founder's mentality, the people that were invested in the beginning of it all, who had direct interaction with the customers or their clients or the level of business. But as you start to grow, and like all things, when they grow, they become more complex, and your areas become bigger, more people to control, and eventually you lose out on communication. It's levels up and memos like crazy, like we talked about before. So sometimes you have to eliminate the layers that add to the complexity. So sometimes it's great to kind of have that dialogue with the front line, like we mentioned, not that memo. And we were just talking about commitment. That's what made me think of it. Having that founder's mentality means you're committed because you're invested as if you're an owner. Is that hard to get that in corrections? Maybe. But as a supervisor, as a leader, you should see it that way. Because, you're responsible for a big piece of what that mission represents, and how do we translate that to the front line. So maybe, like Connie mentioned ownership before, so maybe take an ownership of that vision like it's your own, because you've aligned values. And when the mission comes, to kind of let people know, hey, this is why we got to do it, and believe in it. It could motivate people and then eventually lead them to inspire, because again, if they respect you, they see your behavior, they see that commitment, eventually they're like, hey, listen, I get it. Why?
And it's not just words.
It's
right?
not just words. They get it because they feel it from someone that they trust, because we mentioned trust, but maybe they're connected to it and they're just looking for an excuse to finally find a way to express it. And you could be that person that starts that way. But I love what Connie said. It's not words. It's your actions. Now, this is key. Self-awareness, reach the highest pinnacle. Effective leadership means being aware of your full potential as well as the areas you need to further develop. One of the leadership pitfalls is complacency or arrogance. A leader must accept that there are things he has yet to learn. It then becomes his responsibility to learn these things and develop his leadership skills further to benefit himself and his organization. Anthony Tijan sums up self-awareness in Trinity: know thyself, improve thyself, and complement thyself. This leadership skill, however, is not only self-focused. The complement thyself in the Trinity involves other people. As a leader, this can be your team that is composed of different individuals with strengths that complement each other. You must be aware of what values each person in your team can bring to achieve the goals you envision. Enrolling in a team leadership program that leads you to realize your team's and your own potential is a great way to fulfill the potential of a leader. Hey, Connie, self-awareness. A lot of leaders do, well, a lot of supervisors lack that. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, as it talks about the ego, right? Like some people feel, sort of that when they get into that positional leadership, right? Like I've arrived and, there's nothing else to learn. And I continue to learn every day. Every time I talk to a civilian in another state, I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that, and that's good for me because that means I'm still growing and I'm open to learning. But I think when you don't have that self-awareness that you don't know everything, right? And that you can learn from anyone, right? That everyone's got their own life lessons that they can share or impart, right? Some piece of wisdom to us. You take the good, you take the bad, right? And you do what you will with it. But that self-awareness is really putting you in a place where you are still in a space where you can grow. You are still in a space where you can take those daily life lessons from anybody, everybody, and you're not too big to do it, right? You've not just arrived. And I think part of the challenge sometimes is the ego, right? That won't allow your life lesson or that thing that you learned today, you won't receive it well from front line. It's like, why not? Right. And I think those are the people who we need to question, right? Like it's kind of like, why is it that those words or that lesson needed to come from someone higher in title as opposed to someone who is on the front line? And I don't know that, people are aware when they dismiss information that could be of value, or when they become condescending in their tone when they're talking to people, because by virtue of title, which our industry is driven by rank and title, it's definitely, I think, something that we all have to be mindful of, and particularly as leaders.
Yeah, I agree. I think with self-awareness, knowing your vulnerabilities is key too, because trust and believe your team knows it.
Yeah.
You may not think they do, but they do. So I think when you get into a position to lead, you have to be very self-aware, because how you see yourself could reflect how your team grows, could reflect the people you attract. So having said that, knowing yourself to me is essential, because again, it goes back to self-growth. It goes back to self-growth, and knowing yourself it also deals with how you react to the situations that you're in. Some people believe that they can handle everything and they'll fake the funk, but maybe it's good to know, what, this isn't for me. Why don't you take the lead on this one? Why don't you step up? And then, this is where your strength is. Because sometimes even being a leader doesn't mean you're the best person for every position that's needed. It just means that you're able to kind of, and we'll get to, did we get to that yet? Delegate. We'll get to that. But it means that you're in a position to maybe delegate the best people. Remember, guys, the strength of a team is all reliant on how the leader puts them in the position to be strong. So having said that, sometimes that means that you as a leader have to step away. Sometimes it means this is the team's moment, not yours. So being very self-aware. I also believe that you have to have knowledge of who you are before you come into this profession, because
how many people you think could do that?
It's
the team's moment. I love that. It's not yours.
It's Connie. It's hard because you're going to have some people that are out to recognize or to be recognized even as they move up. I mean, to them, it's not even about growth. It's I made it. And now I want everybody to see it. And it's not about that. It's about continued growth. And technically, the more you move up, the more you serve your people. So technically, you're a servant to the people, not that they serve you. So it really depends on the perspective of the person moving up. Some people move up in obscurity. They do it for the right reasons. And some people move up because it puts them in the spotlight. So, and you have to know who you are. I'm telling you right now, if you're a supervisor right now, ask yourself, did you move up because you think it's a better chance for you to be in the spotlight? or are you moving up because you're looking to learn and kind of do what's right for the team and serve your people? So again, it matters. It matters your motivation of why you're moving up. I think that's what really matters. Why are you seeking the higher position? Some people may actually seek it because it really is external incentives, which could include recognition and power. And some people will seek it for something internal because I'm inspired, because I want to create a difference and it's in me, and I want to serve others. And I think the higher I go, the greater opportunity I can to serve others. So it's a great question, Connie, but it really is dependent on the motive of the person moving up. But having self-awareness, especially coming into this profession, it gives you something to fall back to when, this profession tries to change you every step of the way. So knowing who you are coming in gives you a balance. It gives you that destination. So, I don't want to go too far from that. That's who I am. So if you don't know who you are, the profession will control the shit out of you.
Okay.
All right. So this is actually a nice one. Oh, Connie. Jesus, comments here. I saw a Connie comment. So when people are focused, state the word "I can't," "I'll try," "I'll do it tomorrow," maybe, get forced out of the vocabularies. Yeah, guys, the verbiage that we use, I think it's called neurolinguistics, can really affect how we think or how we see our abilities, technically. Now, this is important. This is delegation, become a mentor. So delegation is an essential part of effective leadership. Delegation does not mean offloading work, as you can have less stress as a leader. Effective delegation means you're building the leadership skills of those individuals who have the potential to become future leaders. Delegating tasks means that you trust your team members to do more than what is expected of them. More importantly, delegation is one of the most important leadership competencies because it allows you to focus on more pressing issues. Through delegation, you're essentially mentoring your team members. It's a form of informal management skills training as they undertake tasks above their pay grade. Hey, let me mention something before we go. I'm a big thing with this. So I believe in delegation, right? But I believe to the point that even when you delegate, the work that you're delegating to someone else should grow them a little bit. Like the people that you have working for you are not really means to the ends of getting a job done, but rather the job you select them for should be helping them grow. That's why it's great to know your people. You have a good team, you know where their strengths are, and you can, make sure you give work that aids their growth, helps them excel, helps them take on maybe a potential level of leadership. More importantly, though, you also want to give them some level of responsibility over the work you're assigning, but there's got to be some level, in my mind, of personal growth. I think that people become very disenfranchised when they become overwhelmed with work and they really can't learn. They really can't take the time to learn because they're so overwhelmed with work that I just want to get through it, Gange. I wish I could take time and really learn what I'm doing right now, but I can't. Right now, I got to get through this because I got 5 other things to do. So now you lose out on a big part. And those that are high achievers, they may be getting a lot of stuff done, but they're not really moving forward. They're not growing. It's like, well, they've done all these things. Yeah, but really they're kind of becoming the jack of all trades and the masters of none. I've learned that working at a very fast facility, I can get a lot of stuff done at a good rate, but people could do it better than me. If that makes any sense. So to me, when you're overwhelmed, if you have to delegate work, you want to try to delegate work where the person receiving it can get value from it. It's very important, or else you'll wind up disenfranchising them and they lose out on their purpose and their why. But delegation's key too, because if you can't delegate, you are going to overwhelm yourself too. That's why you got to stay away from micromanaging and all that other shit, because as your areas of control start to grow and get bigger, your span of control, you can't micromanage everything. So delegation is very key to survival, but there is a strategy to it all. Connie, what's your thoughts on delegation?
Yeah, I mean, I think that in this space, it's a must. I think it's a must for our own ability to stay on top of the various things that come up from day to day. But I think it's a must as we think about how we cultivate, tomorrow's leaders, right? Like, how do you, if God forbid something happens to someone and we've got to replace someone in the chain of command, right? But that person never handled any other tasks, right? But these things right here, I think that's where we fall short from the perspective of succession planning, right? That we have to be able to let go of some of these things that we think are so critical, right? So like just imagine that you entrust that critical thing to someone who you've been cultivating as a leader. Look how much confidence you build in that person that you've now trusted with this critical thing. And this is not to say you delegate and then like it's just hands off and now it's their responsibility. It's you delegate and you stay within a distance that the person knows you're available if there's any guidance needed. Not you've delegated and you moved on and now this is on their plate, because I think that's part of it too. It takes the edge off the fact that this is of a critical nature. It lets them know that it is something important. Like, I'm not just giving you busy work, I'm giving you something to do to help build you, to see what areas you need support in. Are you resourceful? These are the decisions that you'll have to make when you decide that you're going to move up into whatever that next role is. And I think that's the thing that we have to be mindful of, that, you know, I've heard them be called stretch assignments, right? This assignment that you're being, or this thing that we're delegating to you, is to stretch you
out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. And this is not about, you know, this is something you already know how to do. No, this is because this is something you may not know how to do. And we want to make sure you know what resources you need to tap into in order to make things happen. But I think this is critical, just even for your own peace of mind, because there's no way. Are you ever finished all the stuff on your desk?
No.
Right.
No.
So if you didn't delegate, what would that look like?
It'd just be you'd be overwhelmed. Again, you know, you're going to get overwhelmed and it becomes work for the sake of work. You know, sometimes you could, but I like it says become a mentor. Yeah, you're delegating work, but you're reminding people of the value behind the work. We did an episode a while ago about when rookies come in and the senior staff kind of push them off to do stuff and they get overwhelmed and they're like, well, this is bullshit. Yeah, because you're not next to them teaching them the value of the work. You're just pushing the work off because it's convenient for you not to do it. You know, so I love that. Being the mentor does involve making sure that when you give off work that, you know, there's some value behind it. You're not just giving off work for the sake of work. It's like, hey, listen, this is why it has to be done. Explain it and build that relationship. When that person comes back, they kind of look at it like, well, I get why it had to be done that way. Mm-hmm. Even something as simple as an inventory or whatever it is, you know, they all have a purpose. They all have a value. And as a rookie or as a new person, don't be afraid to ask the leader why. You know, why do we have to do this? Not the what or the how. I mean, you can learn that. Ask the why. The why is a story. It connects you. It brings about a reason that will stay with you, in my opinion. Now, organization we kind of touched on, but just to briefly do it, make it a habit. Organizational leadership involves setting goals. We kind of touched that. Planning the execution, seeing the implementation through, and reviewing the outcome to identify improvement areas. It also involves returning to the drawing board and setting new goals. So, guys, you know, I mean, to be honest with you guys, and this would be a quick one, if you don't have a plan of where you're headed, we mentioned this, then you're never going to get there. You know, if you don't have a scoreboard to kind of see where you're at in the game, then you're never going to make the adjustments to get to where you need to be. So having said that, it's very key that you yourself are organized, because if you're not, then you can't expect your team to be successful at any level. Connie, anything you want to add on that before we move forward on that one?
No, I think I'm good. I think
we kind of covered that.
Self-explanatory.
Consistency, be fair and avoid favoritism. An article entitled "The 10 Golden Rules of Effective Management" listed consistency as the first rule. Every manager has their own management style, but whatever style you use, you need to be consistent in treating each team member equally. Complete fairness in rewarding behaviors you want to encourage, and in giving feedback to behaviors that you want to discourage is essential. Treat everyone the same and always avoid favoritism. Effective leadership is being consistent and implementing your chosen management style and leadership values so your integrity as a leader remains solid. I'm going to tell you guys something on this one. I love everyone, but not everyone's worthy of my time. That's John Maxwell's quote. So you treat people with the same respect. I get it, but there's some people you may devote more time to because your time has value too. You know, there's only so many times I'm going to invest in someone and they're just not moving forward, and then I could be investing in someone else who wants to. So again, time management, priorities, however you want to look at it, I still treat people the same, but at the end of the day, I will take note of the people that are worthy of my time, who want to grow, who want to move forward, who allow this relationship to occur, and then those that are just constantly setting back, and it's like, hey, I'll still give you the respect, but time is two ways. You know, people like, well, am I worthy of that person's time? Make yourself worthy. Make yourself worthy. Let's not just see each other when you're getting in trouble. Let's see that, there's an investment and you're improving, you're moving forward. But also consistency doesn't mention here, but consistency also brings confidence. I believe so too. If you're consistent in your ways, and again, usually based on values, beliefs, that why, then you become confident in decisions you're going to make, because then you know what you're going to expect from yourself. And that consistency will help you bring expectations to your team. Because if you yourself are inconsistent, then your team's not going to be consistent. But again, that consistency really does come with, beliefs, values, stuff that do connect to the organization. I get it. But, if you don't have that, then you could easily be shifted. That's why a lot of inmates, they could play with someone's beliefs, someone's values, and they can manipulate you, because if they don't feel that you're connected to the profession or connected to your people, they can find ways to separate you. But if you're going with those strong values, core beliefs, it's hard for them to move you, because your motivation is not external, it's internal. You're inspired. So, Connie, consistency, a lot of different ways here, but what's your thoughts on that?
For me, I think I look at it the opposite way, right? So like being unfair and playing favor creates division, right? And so because that's not the environment you want to cultivate, that's definitely not something you want to take on. So the consistency for me means that I am not going to create a gap for there to be any division, right? I'm not going to create a gap where people will need to doubt my integrity or doubt my morals and ethics and values and all of that. It is a matter of staying true to myself and always show up consistently, right? Because I think there is value in the staff being able to predict that you will be there, that this is how you will respond, whether it's good or bad, right? I think the having that, I know my manager well enough to know this is not what they would expect from me, right? This is not the behavior that my manager is going to support. Not that she supported it with this one, but won't support it with that one. There is, I think, consistency in the expectations of how you will deal with situations with the staff, I think really matters. If the goal as a leader is to make sure that you don't create these gaps where there can be division, then I think consistency would be key to your leadership role.
Right now we're coming down to the last group, home stretch. Holy shit.
Home
it's a
stretch.
long one, but guys, it does have guys. So Connie, first off, thank you for always being available. The work that you, the value and work that you bring back to this profession. I mean, just the time you just committed today is amazing. And even for the people that are in the audience here, you added by putting the comments in and just motivating our dialogue. So hopefully it creates a dialogue that people can learn from and take with them, because I believe, me and Connie were talking about this today, the reason why we're doing this, guys, is not a lot of leadership training. So, this is our effort to give something so people know what to expect. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think 6 left. 20, 21, 22, 23, yep, 24, 25, yep.
Jeez. But one thing I don't want us to skip over is Mr. Chameleon 101 had put a statement in about
Connie, you rock, really? That's the one that you want to not skip over? Mr. Chameleon, Connie, you rock. That's the one, of course, Connie.
I didn't even see that. I just wanted to go back to the statement of him investing the time in someone who turned around and was bringing in contraband, right? And I feel like that's important to address, only because we talk the mentorship. We're trying to encourage people to stay always engaged and always working at the top of their potential and giving all they got. And so sometimes when these kind of things happen, it really is a personal blow, right? Because for me to invest my time in someone, like, that means I personally am investing in your growth and your development. And so, it's just to kind of encourage folks that you could be doing your best with someone. That doesn't mean that they're actually focused in that direction. You know what I mean? It's kind of like you're trying to pour into them the positiveness and the goodness that they bring. But some people, like, unfortunately, that's what they come into the system to do. And so I think when we do find these times where it happens, I could imagine myself taking a step back and trying to think, like, what did I miss? Right? Like, and so even though you want to do that, I would just caution not to stay in that space, right? Like, because there may have been some slight behavior change or something that maybe you may not have picked up on, but I just don't want that to discourage anyone from being that mentor and being that change agent, because we need more people to do that.
Yeah, when you mentor, I mentioned it's an investment of time. So, of course, it's an investment. You feel the loss, whether you're going to blame yourself or I've been through that. I did a video on it, actually, about mentoring someone and then the person making a very bad choice and how I felt about it. The profession wanted me to feel a certain way, but I couldn't get myself to that level because of the investment of time in this individual, and then put myself to blame, and then just but it's the investment of time. Just like if you were to lose money in an investment, same thing here. You invested time in this individual, your time has value, and the person makes a bad choice. And the first thing you look at is the amount of time you spent, and it matters, guys. It matters. But you just have to know something. People are still responsible for their own choices. So all you could have done was maybe delayed them for one day or two. But if they're going to do something foolish, they're going to do something foolish, but we learn from it. Yeah. Now you start to realize how valuable your time really is, and become a little bit more pickier in the people that you choose to invest with. That's why I said I love everyone, like John Maxwell says, but not everyone's worthy of my time. If that makes any sense. Honesty. Leaders need to be honest to earn trust of their employees. This leadership skill is more natural than learned or trained. It's about ethics and integrity. The CEO magazine shared that 89% of 100,000 people surveyed said it's the most valued leadership quality. One may ask how this is a skill, but it can truly be one of the most effective leadership competencies that will win your people's trust and make them committed to their job. Teams become more engaged if they perceive that their leaders are honest and have integrity. Honesty makes you an effective leader by being consistent, which we mentioned, and keeping your word and following through with your promises to your team members. Guys, this is pretty much self-explanatory, but guys, if you're not honest, you don't have trust, you don't have the right environment, because we need a trusting environment as leaders, which means that if people can't trust you, you're never going to have a great team, and your motivations always have to be pure. When you move up, you really have to move up in an effort to serve others. It has to be a selfless attempt, as opposed to someone moving up for selfish reasons. But honesty, obviously, I don't know how much we could talk about this, but if you can't trust the person that is above you, that whole team is bound to fail. The whole organization could even go down. That whole department can go down. So honesty, keeping your word matters, especially to your team, because I'm going to tell you something. There's only so much forgiveness a team's going to give you. And eventually you're going to wear out, to the point is you're going to, don't get me wrong, you could have a great reputation and that's going to carry a lot of weight for you, where, maybe, you could make some mistakes and errors and they'll forgive you because of your reputation, but that's only going to last so long until you become that new person that they now see you as. And then for you, if you don't have that reputation and you're not honest, I know people that have great reputations and may make a mistake, but they're still seen as the original person because of that reputation. But eventually you start to be seen as that person you're becoming. So, and then again, no trust is nothing. You got nothing. Connie, this is a quick one, Connie. Honesty, anything you want to add on that? Or
Yeah, I don't know. Well, honesty it is a requirement.
It
just is. Like, I don't think that this is really one to negotiate, because honesty truly is everything. Like, there will come a point where your team just stops performing, right? Like, they're going to always do their job, but they're going to stop going above and beyond. They're going to stop doing certain things, because, I can't trust you. I can't trust your word. Your word means absolutely nothing. And no one wants to get to that point where their word means nothing.
Well, Mr. Chameleon trusts us to tell us Mr. Chameleon is Leon Stokes.
Oh,
I know Leon Stokes. It's been a while. I was able to, sometimes he'll send me a message, but I hope everything's well. Leon, as always, you add value to this community. With the discussion, you, Joe Roberts, we got Tommy in here now. You know, a couple of good people just add them to the dialogue that hopefully strengthens it when it's used for training. And I don't think like, oh, Gandra, this video's long. Guys, we invested the time for free, but if it's for your growth, you should invest the time and watch the video because everything here matters. And if you don't want to invest the time, then just says something about you, you know? So it's great. Like Joe Roberts, I mean, these guys been pretty much in it the whole way. Okay, so almost there. This could have been a fucking marathon, to be honest with you.
Well, I just imagine that if this is going to be used for training, that they'll have to break it out in segments.
Yeah, there's, you know, I just thought there was a market and I wanted to, and I looked for this, I'm OCD. I saw 25. I was like, damn, there's 25. Now we're going to do them all. You know what I mean? Who am I going to call? Connie, you know, Connie, hey, what are you doing for the next few weeks? You know what I mean? So, and I did live because we were doing video, kind of like, hey, we got to cut this one short. No. Do it live. You're committed now. No, she never does that. Team building, unity, and strength. This kind of talks about relationships. We kind of skim over this too a little bit, but a successful organization must be cohesive. Only leaders with effective management skills can bring an organization towards success by putting to use all leadership skills training regarding people management. Bringing people from different backgrounds and ideals can be challenging. Team building can help you find common interest among your team members, which will promote good teamwork. When a group works well together, productivity improves, goals are achieved faster, better ideas are generated, and there's less attrition, so talent within the organization is retained. Ultimately, when leaders of the organization have good team building skills, the business saves hiring and new employees training costs. Hey, I want to add something on this. So you guys know the more diversity that's involved in making a decision, even though it's more complicated, the better the outcome could be. You know, every time we have a concern, you know, it could be involved in inmate manipulating the system. You want to try to hit every department this inmate could affect, and then bring everyone to the table and discuss concerns from an isolated perspective, to be honest with you, to see where everybody's coming from. But then we bring those into a collective perspective, how we're going to do everything that benefits everyone, so everyone's a win-win. I know that's really big with inmates that are trying to play the game, like PREA or suicides or stuff like that, where they're looking to manipulate moves or they have motives that aren't so pure and genuine. So definitely team building is really about growth, but again, growing together. So there's some effort from someone that you can trust to create an environment where everybody can come in, no matter what their background is, and we all grow together. And I think the growth also comes from knowing the strengths and weaknesses of the members and trying to kind of position them where they're best and then learn from each other, understand each other. But it really starts as a leader by creating an environment that allows this type of dialogue to happen. It's something I'm trying to work on now. It's a lot harder than you think because you can introduce this mentality to new people coming in, but the harder part's maintaining it because some people don't believe where the shift is headed. So you got to kind of have some influence with people on the floor that can motivate the message and keep the new people in line with where you want it to head. But again, cohesiveness, team growth, unity is strength. We're in it together, no matter what department you represent. You know, Connie, team building kind of touches on building relationships. But anything you want to add on this one?
Yeah, so that was one thing that I thought is team building is just a way for facilitate that relationship building, because I think it does when you've built team alongside someone as opposed to someone saying, oh, that person's really great at their job or they're really knowledgeable or they're really smart. You know, I think the more we create environments where we are working side by side, and I could see up front that, you know, I could see up front that that person is they know their stuff, right? Like that's better than getting that third party. So I think the team building approach is definitely a good one to bring people together and put people to work together that wouldn't necessarily be working together. So, you know, I think that's what matters too, that you are now side by side with someone who you may not have known what their strengths were prior to stepping into that team building activity. And now you get to know firsthand, you know, that person personality wise also, which a lot of times we don't get, especially when you're walking through facilities and you just might say hi, but you've never stopped to actually talk to someone.
Ain't that key, by the way, what you said, bringing people together that would normally, and we kind of touched on this throughout the dialogue, technically. Leon said we should have a super chat, and I said, well, I wish, but technically what we give is free at the most, so it's cost me my 2 cents. Yeah, I wrote that. It's a very corny joke, but I appreciate Leon kind of responding back to that because I was alone on that one. The next one, emotional intelligence, know thyself. A leader who does not possess self-awareness as management skill may also not possess the required emotional intelligence to lead his team effectively. Organizations that are more technical in nature should invest in management skills training that focuses on emotional intelligence to help advance their production line staff to supervisory roles. The ability to empathize and listen to your peers and team members is part of being emotionally intelligent. To decipher a person's emotions and know how best to deal with them, professionally may not come instinctively to everyone. So necessary leadership skill training needs to be implemented to develop or enhance emotional intelligence. You know what? I actually read this. This was a good book. Daniel Goleman's Emotional Intelligence. I enjoyed it. And it didn't come recommended through me, to my agency. I had to go out and seek it myself. But it kind of touches on what we already discussed, guys. Understanding people's perspective, trying to see where they're coming from, and then being empathetic, not sympathetic, because it's sometimes it's, understanding that perspective that really helps us move them forward from something that they kind of listen. If you're going to try to move a person forward by your direction only, by your perspective, they're not going to be motivated to move forward. You have to try to understand where they're coming from and then move them forward from that angle. And that takes a lot to do. That's why a lot of people don't invest their time in that. Most of the time when people give advice, they technically give very selfish advice. This is what I would do if I was in your position. But you're not them. You don't have the same experiences they have. That's not what they want to hear. They don't want to hear what you want to do. They want to hear maybe an advice from their perspective and understanding so that, when you give them advice, it's not what you would do, but what they would do based on their circumstances and their experiences. A lot of people, technically, it's funny when they give out advice, a lot of people somehow make it about them, and sometimes that's not what they want to hear. Like, okay, you've been divorced and I'm going through a divorce, but I don't want to hear about your divorce. Because I don't. It's me. We're not going to be the same. My circumstances could be different than yours. So I think the key is to really invest time, have that attentive listening, that empathetic listening, and when you talk to your employees, understand their perspective and move them forward. A lot of times when people say, "Well, this is what I would do," it's probably because you haven't listened to where they're at, where where they need to go from where they're at. It's crazy because I kind of think of it this way. So let's say I'm driving across the country and someone says, how do you get to California? So I'll tell them how to get to California from where I live in Jersey, but they live over in Wisconsin. My directions from Jersey is either part of it's going to be irrelevant to them. It doesn't matter until I get to a road that somehow we can share, or it could be totally off course and wasted their time. So having said that, emotional intelligence really is an understanding of, someone else's perspective and then guiding them totally in a non-selfish way. This is probably one of the biggest gifts you can give someone else is your time, your empathetic ear, and trying to understand where you need to move them forward from where they're at currently. Not from New Jersey, but from Wisconsin. I don't know what the hell made me think of Wisconsin.
No, that point was well made.
Was it?
Yes,
Connie, it's not from here.
The point was well made.
Solo layout. Go ahead.
The point was well made. And I think when you think about it from a directional perspective, right? It's like the person's not in Jersey. So even though you may have directions, that would get you from Jersey to your point B, I think like, okay, so what's the point if I'm coming from Wisconsin, right? So like, I think the whole point behind the emotional intelligence piece is being able to just acknowledge where people are, right? And I think it's even more important as we think about those people who aren't feeling motivated right now, right? When we think about those people who aren't feeling the best about the job because of the things that they're experiencing, I think we have to be able to acknowledge the place that they're at. Right? This is where you are and this is why you're there. And I can't expect you to go be the cheerleader, right? There has to be something to change the tide or get you to the point where that tide is changing, where you can be motivated again. But there's a shift that has to happen. And I think that piece of emotional intelligence is being able to take into account the way others feel and not be that leader that's only focused on the mission and who wants to somehow disregard that there are people working towards that mission. I think the more that we acknowledge the people, the better we will be positioned to move into the direction that we need to be in.
Remember, you can't be productive without the people, and again, the people have to give you permission to lead them. It's level 2 of Maxwell's leadership. Position's great, gives you the opportunity, but without the people's permission, you don't lead shit. You're walking, but you have no followers. I mean, that's one of the things he mentions. Now, this we kind of touched on. We're getting down to the last few. Ability to train other people, develop yourself first. I agree with this. So real quick, statistics show that 93% of managers need training on coaching employees. The ability to train and coach other people is an essential management skill that requires a manager to teach as well as give constructive and timely feedback. Harvard Business Review even published an online article entitled "Managers Aren't Doing Enough to Train Employees for the Future." Organizations should include how to train people in their leadership skill training programs, while online leadership trainings and formal leadership skill trainings given by the training department are common investments for organizations. Successful organizations are full of managers who do on-the-job training and mentor their staff. Employees feel more connected to their managers in this setup, and collaboration is encouraged, resulting in increased engagement and higher productivity. Hey, Connie, this goes back to the behavior, modeling the behavior. It's hard for me to listen to you and what you're telling me to do when maybe you could be showing me what to do. Don't tell me, show me. I think that's very key. Think about the time spent with somebody when you're showing them how to do something. That is very productive time. If you have a student that's willing to listen next to somebody who's willing to teach, the stories, the chance to connect, the chance to create something evergreen in that person's life. I'm teaching you the what, the how, the why, the purpose behind it all. There's so much value in that exchange. And I do agree. I think that as we, become more complex with growth, a lot of things are shifting to the middle. So the people that are in these supervisory positions, they can't teach, they can't coach because they don't know the job. That's why we got to go back to that founder's mentality. Bring back people who know the job, who are invested, who feel like they're owners in leadership positions, and let them connect with the people so they can say, hey, I'm coaching you, but let me show you the value that I need you to get across here because I'm invested in this. Let me show you what it is that we have to get done at the highest level because I believe in what it is that you're doing. That puts a little something behind the exchange. Something where that person leaves. They didn't just learn how to do an inventory. They learned to believe in what was being done when they do the inventory. They learn to connect to something at a higher level. So yes, I believe coaching someone is key because it just opens up so many levels of connection. And if you're a supervisor or a leader and you're in a position to kind of teach somebody or mentor them, you got to embrace that. You have to embrace that, please. What's your thoughts on that, Connie? On the ability to train other people?
So I think we have to get better at doing this because all too often we is that Sienna?
Yeah, she wandered down.
All too often, I think, people get promoted into spaces because of how long they've been on the job and not necessarily because they would be effective people managers, right? And so in managing people, part of the role of the leader is developing those people, being able to train those people or partner them with people who can do training, right? And most of the time it is the person they're working shoulder to shoulder with, right? Most of the time, if you have the ability to have a more senior staff, like I think about my nursing staff, right? Like I'd have a really seasoned nurse with a newer nurse, right? And that seasoned nurse is showing the newer nurse all of the things that she could and should be doing on the floor, ways to get through the workload for the day, ways to organize herself, things that would take her probably weeks or months to try to figure out, partnering folks. So I think there's an intentionality that has to come behind mentoring and training people. And I think as we kind of talk through that innovative side or that adaptive section, part of that is being aware of what's trending in the environment, right? Being aware of what's new, what's happening, whether it's something in care, whether it's something in population management. Either way, like being on that cutting edge, I think really does matter, because that allows people to build new capabilities, right? Like, oh, I have to learn how to do this thing because this is what's happening in corrections now, right? I have to learn how to provide this level of therapy because they're seeing more trauma come in, or folks who went and got special training for methadone maintenance or Suboxone, right? Like, and I think that's where we have to, as an organization, be able to support those folks who may want to train in other things, right? It may not be their prescribed role, but these are the new capabilities that we could bring to the table, which allows the trainer in, like, we build it in to our system. So there aren't just always sending people out to specialized trainings, but here are some trainings that others have taken that they can come back and become trainers of their colleagues.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest with you guys, it's very important, because if we don't have leaders that know how to model the proper behaviors, I believe that we're going to have front line that just doesn't respect their level of authority. I believe there has to be something that's passed off, and a chance to train is a chance to build a connection. And again, I used to love doing it. Some people see it as a burden. I don't get it, because that's your chance to leave a legacy, to leave an impression. I mean, I remember the person that trained me almost 20 years ago, because they took time with me. They shared stories that I've learned from, that I still practice today. And to be remembered is what I want. I want to create a legacy. I don't want to be forgotten. I mean, I'm going to be in this profession for over 20 years, going to do 25 hopefully, and I don't want to. All I got is to be remembered. So again, your chance to connect with somebody on that level, and even Tier Talk's part of that. I mean, stuff that we're doing now does help people in this profession. Eventually, when we're long gone, these videos could still maybe have value, and next thing you know, people that were officers 20 years ago, that these videos or their connection on social media, introduced them to this profession, and now look where they're at now. It's powerful, guys. Okay, two more. Holy crap. Ability to go above and beyond, expand more effort than the minimum. Every organization wants an employee who goes above and beyond what's expected. To be a value creator means you are someone who goes above and beyond the minimum expectation. This effective leadership skill allows executives to drive people to do better each time. When you go above and beyond what's necessary, you raise the bar, and the standard becomes higher for the next one who will be doing the same task. So a process of continuous improvement is created, and the outcome is better every time. Guys, I want to add on in this. I'll start from this perspective. Going above and beyond for me is continuing learning as a supervisor. Remember, we were in Nebraska, and we had a gentleman that became a supervisor very young in his career, and he was nervous. And we told him quickly that being a supervisor isn't really about the position. It's not an end result. It's continued learning. But you're going to have to invest time. If you want your team to grow, you yourself have to go and grow yourself. So for me, going above and beyond as a leader is really about growth. Keep growing. Don't just do it on the job. Do it when you're home. If you have a chance to read a book, if there's a chance to find time, try to find some way to kind of educate yourself, leadership, a bunch of things. There's so many different things that you can grow from that can make you better in this profession, but ultimately make you better as a team leader. I have Kindle on the phone. So, I could pretty much read a chapter a day of any book. And the next thing you know, think about it, guys, a chapter a day, you could probably knock out one book within 2 weeks. Let's just say, give a grant. That's 26 books a year, minimal amount of effort. Just reading through and just picking up things passively as you read it. But with that said, guys, going above and beyond is an effort to serve the people that you supervise. So that's another thing you have to be ready to do, because you can't expect them to do that for you if you're not willing to do that for them. And that really does mean stretching out of your comfort zone, and really expanding the areas that you never knew even existed. It's about personal growth. Connie, what's your thoughts on that?
I feel like above and beyond is just, I think it's a standard that you got to hold yourself to, right? Like, I think it can't be the above and beyond for the attention, for recognition, for whatever. It is just your standard. So if I'm doing a job, I want to do the best job that I can do. And what that looks like for me may be different, right? So someone may look at me and think, oh, she's going above and beyond for this thing. And I feel like I'm just being thorough. Right. And so I think the above and beyond is something where you can step into a space, you'd be working to complete a task, and then you see that there's a gap, right? Instead of going back and saying, oh, I did XYZ and this still needs to get done, you could also say, I did XYZ and I noticed that this needed to get done and I did it anyway, right? And like not looking for, the pat on the back or looking for any recognition, but it's just your work ethic. And I feel like there's so many that have that work ethic, but it sometimes the environment just there's no appreciation for that above and beyond. But like I think there's a quote out there, right, that says like there's nothing wrong with going above and beyond. You won't have a lot of company there, right? Because there's not a lot of people who are going to push themselves, or maybe there are, right? And maybe they just don't get acknowledged. So I don't want to pass judgment that there aren't a lot of people, but the thought process is people are doing their job. Like I'm going to do what I need to do, make sure I still get paid, I don't get in trouble, blah, blah, blah. Right. And then you find those people who are like, listen, what else can I do? Right? How else can I be of service? What else can I do to help? And like those are the gems that we've got to be able to embrace, because those people that go above and beyond are bringing a value back to the workplace that we haven't even paid for.
Yeah, what's funny is most people will say, well, the union says that. Stop. Because most of the time, the stuff that we find, the contraband, the lives we save, is because we're going above and beyond. So if we didn't have the people that go above and beyond, that find some value in what they do, we probably would never be able to even run a safe and secure facility, because we would get stuck in the routines, which are rather predictable. Going above and beyond could be not predictable. So the point is maybe going back when you don't have to do another tour because something didn't feel right. Or, you know what, usually we do this standard search, but today I'm going to do an extra search today. It matters, because going above and beyond is, especially in our profession, is kind of what helps us move in a safe and hopefully a good direction. But again, if we stuck with people that only did what's contractually obligated, we'd be a very, very predictable profession, and our life would be at risk every day. So for those that go above and beyond, thank you, because it really is appreciated. Going above and beyond will usually land you in a leadership position. There's some circumstances in that it won't apply. However, most of the time it works. Yeah, it does, because you know what it is? You know what it is, Joe? It's the fact that, you're, I think Connie touched on it, you're stretching your boundaries, you're growing, you're increasing your knowledge, you're gaining wisdom because you're finding a way to apply it. I mean, going above and beyond literally is learning something and then trying to apply it, as opposed to I'll learn something just for the sake of learning. I know we talked about, I go to conferences, you learn, and then they don't give you a chance to apply it. But innovation comes from probably people going above and beyond. Being creative comes from people probably going above and beyond. Because, again, we're stuck with routine. Nothing changes. But it takes one person to say, hey, I did this today. It's like, oh, shit, we should be doing that all the time. Thank you for going above and beyond. Sorry. All right, so last one.
Oh, God.
Holy crap.
Right. I don't know what I signed up for tonight.
Oh, you didn't sign anything. Shit, you can leave now. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, you signed somewhere. You signed. No, Connie, did you ever sign? Let me just check something. Give Gangi my soul, Connie Alleyne. Yeah, right here. Right here. So giving me your soul comes with a few commitments. You know what I mean?
Clearly.
Yeah, clearly. 25 commitments today. All right, confidence, no place for fear. Now, guys, listen, this comes in, I believe, talked about this before, so I want to make sure we talk about it in context. Guys, we work in an environment where there could be some danger. So obviously, to say that we're not in fear, but fear can never make you hesitant. Fear could be a great motivator, too. It reminds you of the world you're in. But this is a little bit different, though. This deals with your ability to be a leader and make decisions. That's different. That you can never be afraid to do. Because you need to have confidence when you make a decision, so people could believe in the decisions that you're making. So confidence, no place for fear. Confident leaders make the organization appear strong and solid to its external and internal customers. It's critical. And by the way, that means trust. Just summarizing that means trust. It's critical for leaders to appear confident to their team members who look up to them all the time. Leaders need to make confident decisions even when circumstances are difficult. Now, new leaders can benefit most from leadership training programs that help improve their communication skills, people management skills, and even simple personal development training. For example, Dress for Success seminars can help boost confidence for new leaders. Seasoned leaders, on the other hand, continue to build confidence as they gain more leadership training and practical experience in their fields. So I have to be quick with this too, guys, as we wrap it up, is you got to have confidence in what you do so people can believe in you. If you don't have confidence, if you don't believe in what you're doing, the mission that you're carrying out every day, if you're hesitant in any way, the people you lead will lose trust in you. They'll lose trust in your position of authority. Remember, you're responsible for them. You make decisions that can relate to their safety and well-being. That's why for some leaders, people will be quick to go to battle for them, and others, you're a supervisor, but I don't trust your decisions. So having said that, being confident, showing confidence, and it does come, guys, confidence does come from going above and beyond, stretching yourself into different comfort zones, because, again, you're working in a prison or jail, you're working in an unpredictable environment. So you got to be willing to stretch and learn more and, build that level of confidence so people can relate to that. And when you give them a directive that could possibly risk their life, but it deals with the job and has to get done, they have to trust in you more than you would never believe. More than you would ever believe. They have to have trust that you have their best interest at heart. And you're not going to get that trust if you are not seen as confident, if you're seen as hesitant and you just don't carry that perception of authority with dedication and commitment and, more importantly, integrity. Connie, what's your thoughts on confidence? Then we can wrap it up.
I think certainly, in our environment, there's a healthy level of fear that serves as a barometer that we're in tune with the environment and what's going on. But I don't think that healthy level of fear should in any way trump our confidence in how we navigate our world, right? How we engage with the population, how we address conflicts, how we deal with situations head on, and that's not that there isn't a fear of a possible negative outcome. It is, I'm moving confidently with the information I have, making a decision I know I need to make. And I think when people see that, I think that in of itself inspires confidence in them. They believe in you because of the way you conduct yourself and how you handle your business. I think, to a point you made earlier, and it's your point.
Is it mine?
It is your point.
All right, so hold on. We're going to do a solo layout.
Oh, my God. We don't need a solo layout.
And wait, while you do that, I'm going to just, I want to just put down how watch as many Tier Talk videos as you can, because I know they'll help you. Just a lot of good. I'm going to live in the moment. Oh, good advice for Hotel Romeo. I remember listening to Tier Talk to encourage myself. And by the way, I'm just joking. Congrats, Hotel Romeo. Looks like he's up for orientation, or she's up for orientation.
Yep.
So I do wish you the best of luck, and thank you for watching our channel and seeing it as a resource that, again, it's all great to learn, but make it actionable, and that's where the key is. So thank you for watching, and hopefully you get what you want. You get this career. Okay, Connie.
The orientation is on Monday at Florida State Prison. So
he's got this. Tell David Smith I said hi.
So I think that confidence, a great example of the confidence is knowing that the recognition is for your team and it's not for you, right? And that doesn't diminish your role or your capabilities or whatever you might have done to contribute to the success of the team. And I think being able to step back and share a spotlight or give up that spotlight so that your team can be recognized, I think shows a significant level of confidence in your own abilities, as well as in your, it also showcases, your team. So I think that was an example that really fits well with confidence, being able to scale back and being able to do what you need to do in order to support your team.
Kind of goes back to critical thinking too. Keep on playing the what ifs, you become more confident because the decisions become automatic. Problem is, I love automaticity because sometimes when you're going through the emergency moments, if you take too much time to think, you become hesitant. So sometimes you want to do what you can to kind of get that automatic reaction. But again, that takes intentional effort. Play the what if situation. What if, until you become automatic in that response, because the confidence will come because you're recognizing through this evaluated experience and what you're doing for growth, you're trusting yourself. So your body's ready to react. That's a great trust when you're running on automatic, because again, you're intuitive and you're increasing your areas of giftedness because you're always growing. So again, for me, communication's my thing. Connie's got a whole mess of great skills, including leadership as well. Russ searches and all this other stuff. So, you focus on that, you build those areas of strengths. A lot of people say, well, focus on vulnerabilities. Yeah, but if you're a 4 at something, you'll probably never be a 10. But if you're a 7 or 8, there's a good chance you could be a 10. So never forget to kind of focus on the areas that you're strong in so you can excel. Because as you start to move up in leadership positions, you delegate a lot. Technically, you only excel maybe at a few things, but you're really good at those few things, and the rest you delegate out. So, again, I strongly believe that in an effort to, grow, don't neglect the areas that you're strong in. Don't just focus on vulnerabilities. There's a story about a duck and a bunch of animals. I forget the book it's from, but like the duck went to school and the teacher wanted to force the duck to climb a tree, and why the duck is trying to learn how to climb a tree. He's a great swimmer, but unfortunately he's not focusing on that no more. So then it becomes an average swimmer, so when you have areas of strength, like for me, it's communication. I'm always looking at stuff for communication and motivation, and I stay focused on that, and I keep on excelling. And if there are areas where I'm weak at, that's fine. But I also can find people that can help balance me out. But the basic premise here is, if you want to build confidence, don't forget to strengthen your areas of strength as well, because don't neglect those. A lot of people tend to neglect that. All right, Leon. All right, guys. Obviously we had some haters, so I blocked them. But then they come back, like the original Cynthia came back as the original Cynthia number 2. So obviously she's no longer original. Something happened there, so I blocked her. Then she came back as a number 3.
Oh my God!
Still original, but now we're number 3. So yeah, just again, guys, it was great. This community kind of ignored it at one point, and they stayed professional. They want to incite shit, but we stayed on our dialogue. So I appreciate that. And guys, we want to share this out. And Hotel Romeo, again, I want to wish you, local broski. Leon, I'll tell you, Leon's a big dude too. So, Leon's ready to go CO. You know what I mean? But don't worry, we have medical here. So Connie's medical. Hey, Connie, by the way, just one more shout out. Again, Hotel, let us know what's happening. Message us. Let us know if you got it. I'm curious to see how orientation goes. Connie, any closing thoughts while we wrap up this 2-hour and 41-minute session?
My God. I just want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. I want to acknowledge those people who are still going to be working and missing Thanksgiving dinner. I thank you for your service and your just, not calling out, right? I heard a story over a couple of weeks ago about this guy who he told his people don't call out. And so what did he do? He came into work that day. He came in at like 6:00. And then he was actually the call out person when they called into the command center to call out. And so on that day, no one actually called out because he was the person answering the phone. And I don't think that you have to go to that extreme, but
that's funny,
I know that it's a tough time to be missing the holidays. And so I just want to say thank you to those who are missing Thanksgiving meal with their families and continuing to go into work and keep us all safe.
Yeah, guys, this episode was done. Let me just get rid of this banner. This episode was done, guys, because we don't have a lot of stuff on leadership, so we kind of worked on putting this together. It's 2 hours 41 minutes. I think it covered a lot. We have other leadership videos too, 5 levels of leadership. We discussed a bunch of leadership videos, but I think this is definitely something that is worth sharing out to your people, especially if you're looking to move up. Something that may add to the decision that you're going to make, at least add value. But as always, guys, we appreciate you joining the dialogue. Don't forget, I have a book on the market, Manipulation Decoded. Connie has her book, Cage Was Her Cocoon, both available on Amazon. And maybe one day we'll write this leadership book, and this will be the first chapter. This is just one chapter, guys. This is all about me looking for the lid So these are skills that you can learn. It's not. These are skills. They could become abilities technically, but technically they're skills. You can learn them because they compare skills as something you can learn, ability as what's inherent. But if you don't look to increase these skills, this will create a lid on the people you supervise. Can't expect them to grow past you. So if your leadership is an 8 or a 9, that's great. But if your leadership's a 4 or 5, you can't expect to get people underneath you that are a 7 or an 8. Mm-hmm. Why? Why would I want to work for you? Let's talk about that. No, I'm kidding. I just do. All right, guys, as always, stay safe.